The first thing I noticed was that my family had used every chair in the house except the one I'd built for myself. Ron was in my recliner, leaning back as if he'd been elected to it. Diane and Melissa had dining chairs. My mother-in-law, Evelyn, sat stiffly on the couch beside Carol, whose hands rested on a blue folder in her lap. They had arranged themselves in a neat half-circle around the coffee table. There was no place for me. Nobody spoke when I walked in. 5 faces turned toward me with the solemn concern people usually reserve for a man about to receive difficult medical news. "I'll be right back," I said. I returned from the garage carrying my oak chair. It was heavier than it looked, and getting it through the doorway took some maneuvering. Ron pulled his feet out of my way, but didn't offer to get up. I set the chair in the open space facing them. It landed with a solid thump. "If we're discussing my future," I said, sitting down, "I thought I should bring my own chair." Melissa gave a nervous laugh. Diane didn't. Carol's expression barely changed, but one hand tightened around the folder. On the coffee table lay a color-coded calendar. My name was written across the top in Carol's handwriting. I had been retired for 3 days. What I couldn't understand was how my wife had managed to schedule the rest of my life before I'd even slept late once. 3 days earlier, 86 people had gathered in the Central Library's third-floor event room to tell me how much they were going to miss me. The microphone squealed when my boss, Neil, stepped up to it. Without thinking, I started to rise. "Sit down, Frank," Carol said. "It's feeding back. Someone else can fix it." Neil tapped the microphone twice, which naturally made it worse. Everybody winced. He finally shut it off and raised his voice. "After 41 years, Frank Delaney is officially no longer responsible for this building." That got a bigger cheer than I thought it deserved. Neil told stories about me repairing a burst pipe during the Christmas book sale, talking a furious contractor down from a loading dock, and once climbing onto the roof in dress shoes because a pigeon had set off a motion sensor. The way he told it, I had spent 4 decades roaming the library with a wrench, saving helpless people from water and birds. Carol sat beside me, smiling at the right moments. She looked beautiful in dark green, though she kept rubbing the pale spot on her finger where she'd removed her gardening ring. She did that when she was tired. Neil presented me with a brass desk clock mounted on a piece of walnut. "A clock," I said, "for the man who doesn't have to be anywhere." "You still have to be places," Carol said quietly. I looked at her, but everybody was applauding again. There were sheet cakes, weak coffee, and a poster someone had made with photographs from my first year at the library. In one picture, I had sideburns wide enough to shelter wildlife. Melissa pointed at it and said, "Uncle Frank, you looked like you played bass in a band nobody's parents approved of." "I did play bass." She blinked. "Seriously? No." She laughed and kissed my cheek. Melissa was Diane's daughter, 34 years old, quick with a joke, and usually 3 minutes away from checking her phone. She was opening a second cafe in the Central West End, and had spent most of dinner conversations lately speaking in phrases like soft launch and foot traffic. Ron found me near the cake. "So," he said, clapping a hand on my shoulder, "you ready to get your hands dirty?" "I've spent 41 years getting my hands dirty. I mean, on something fun." To Ron, fun meant working on his house without paying anybody. He had been renovating the same upstairs bathroom for 2 years. The toilet had lived in the hallway long enough that he'd put a plant on it. "I'm taking a little time first," I said. Sure, no pressure. I just need somebody who knows what he's looking at. Call a plumber." I did. He looked at it and gave me a number with a comma. That's how numbers work after you remove a load-bearing wall. He grinned, but his hand left my shoulder. Diane approached before he could answer. At 65, she had the posture of a woman who believed slouching invited weakness. She hugged me carefully to avoid smearing her lipstick. "Mom's been asking what day will be best for you," she said. "For what?" Before she answered, Carol appeared beside us with 2 paper plates of cake. "Not today," she told Diane. Diane lifted both hands. "I was just asking." "Asking what?" I said. Carol handed me a plate. "Eat your cake." That should have been the moment I asked a second time. Instead, I noticed the corner piece she'd brought me had extra frosting. I took that as affection and let the question go. That was one of our oldest arrangements. Carol handled the conversations. I handled whatever came out of them. At home, she kicked off her shoes by the stairs and carried the retirement cards to the kitchen. I brought in the gifts, including the clock, a bottle of bourbon, and a framed photograph of the building at sunrise. "Where should I put this?" I asked, holding up the clock. "Wherever you'll see it." That sounds like a threat. She smiled, but only with her mouth. "Maybe the basement." My basement workroom was crowded with clamps, coffee cans full of hardware, and pieces of oak I had been collecting for the chair. I had built it in a Tuesday night woodworking class at the community college. Carol knew about the class, but she thought I was making a side table for the guest room. The lie had started accidentally. She'd asked what I was building while paying bills, and I said, "Probably a table." By the time it became a chair, I liked having one thing that belonged only to me. That sounds childish when I say it now. At the time, it felt private rather than dishonest. The chair was nearly finished. Broad arms, curved back, mortise and tenon joints that fit without screws. My instructor had run his thumb over one joint and said, "You're allowed to be proud of that, Frank." I remember the sentence because nobody had ever told me pride required permission. The next morning, I woke at 5:12 without an alarm. Carol was asleep on her side, facing away from me. I lay there listening to the furnace come on. For years, my mind would have started listing the day's work orders. That morning, there was nothing waiting for me. Nothing was supposed to feel like freedom. Instead, it felt like missing a step in the dark. I made coffee and carried it onto the back porch. The April air had a wet chill to it. Beyond the fence, somebody's dog barked twice and then apparently reconsidered. Carol came down around 7, wearing her robe. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Being retired. You look cold. I'm retired and cold." She poured coffee and stood at the sink instead of joining me. "What do you want to do today? I thought I'd finish the chair. And after that, sit in it. I'm serious, Frank." "So am I." "It's a chair." She closed the cupboard harder than necessary. "You can't spend retirement sitting in the garage. I've been retired since midnight. Give me until lunch before we stage an intervention." She looked at me then. Something in her face made the joke die between us. "I need to know what you picture," she said. "For today? For our life?" I should have told her. I could have said I wanted to drive the Great River Road while our knees still worked. I could have mentioned the neighborhood repair shop Luis Vega had been trying to reopen on Cherokee Street. Luis wanted a place where people could bring broken things and learn how to fix them. He'd asked if I would help 2 mornings a week. I could have said I wanted mornings with Carol that didn't begin with one of us rushing away. Instead, I sipped my coffee and said, "I haven't made an agenda." Her laugh was soft and tired. "Of course you haven't." She went upstairs to shower. My phone rang before I reached the garage. Melissa. "Hey, retired guy," she said. "How's the first day of freedom? Your aunt is already asking for a 5-year plan." Smart woman. "Listen, I have a tiny favor." "How tiny?" More of a question, really. "Do you know anything about commercial vent hoods?" "I know they're not tiny." She laughed too brightly. "I'm meeting the contractor Tuesday. Maybe you could just come listen so I don't get bulldozed. Next Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm flexible. I'm not committing to anything yet." There was a pause. "Oh, Carol said you'd probably be happy to." That sentence sat wrong. What exactly did Carol say? Nothing. Forget it. Enjoy retirement. Drink something with an umbrella in it. She got off the phone before I could stop her. I found Carol upstairs making the bed. "Did you tell Melissa I'd supervise her cafe work?" She snapped the sheet over the mattress. "I said you might be able to help. She thinks I'm coming Tuesday. Then tell her you can't do Tuesday." "I don't know if I want to do any day." Carol tucked the sheet with both hands. "She's family, Frank. That doesn't make me a commercial contractor." "No, it makes you someone she trusts." She said it like trust was a bill I had run up. I went to the garage and spent 2 hours sanding a chair arm that had been smooth after 20 minutes. Around 11, Evelyn called. Unlike her daughters, Evelyn never wasted time warming up to a subject. "Are you angry?" she asked. I wasn't until people started asking me that. Carol said, "You might be surprised." "By what?" A silence followed. In the background, I heard a television game show and the small metallic click of Evelyn turning off her hearing aid instead of lowering the volume. "You should talk to your wife," she said. I tried. "Try when neither of you is holding a coffee cup." "Evelyn, what's going on? She means well?" That was not an answer. In our family, it was usually an alarm. Carol waited until Friday evening to tell me about Sunday. She was cutting carrots at the kitchen counter. Every piece was nearly the same size. Carol could turn irritation into precision better than anyone I knew. "Mom, Diane, Ron, and Melissa are coming over at 2, she said. What for? We need to sit down together. About what? She slid the carrots into a bowl. Your future. I thought she was kidding. Am I dying? Don't be ridiculous. Then why does my future need a committee? Because decisions affect more than one person. What decisions? Carol rinsed the knife, dried it, and placed it in the block. Sunday, she said. We'll discuss it Sunday. All Saturday, she cleaned a house that was already clean. She dusted the living room, vacuumed under my recliner, and carried in dining chairs one at a time. When I asked why she needed so many, she said, I want everybody comfortable. On Sunday afternoon, I was in the garage rubbing wax into the oak when car doors began shutting out front. Diane arrived first. Ron came 10 minutes late and empty-handed. Melissa brought pastries from her cafe. Evelyn arrived with Carol, who must have gone to pick her up without telling me. I gave the wax another few minutes, then went inside. That was when I found them in their semicircle, with Ron in my recliner and no seat left for me. That was when I brought in my own chair. Now, Carol opened the blue folder on her lap. Diane leaned forward. Ron finally lowered the footrest, though he stayed where he was. Evelyn looked down at her hands. Carol took the color-coded calendar from the coffee table and turned it toward me. We're not trying to gang up on you, she said. Good. I'd hate to see what that looks like. Ron sighed. Can we be adults? I brought furniture. That feels adult. Melissa covered a smile with her fingers. Carol didn't notice. She pointed to the first square on the calendar. You've always needed purpose, Frank, she said. We're trying to make sure you still have one. Monday and Thursday mornings are for Mom, Carol said. Appointments, groceries, pharmacy, whatever she needs. She tapped 2 yellow squares. Evelyn shifted on the couch. I can still buy my own groceries. No one said you couldn't, Mom. You wrote groceries. It's an example. Then write example beside it. Diane made the little exhaling sound she used when Evelyn became inconvenient. Carol moved to the blue squares. Tuesdays Ron could use help finishing the upstairs. Not forever. Just until the bathroom is functional. Define functional, I said. Ron rubbed his jaw. Fixtures installed. Drywall finished. Tile. And the plumbing? Mostly done. Mostly done means water comes out somewhere. It doesn't mean where you intended. I thought you could look at it. You already had a plumber look at it. That guy wanted $6,000. The comma, I said. Melissa pressed her lips together. Ron pointed at me from my own recliner. This is exactly why we thought this was a good idea. You know things. You like working with your hands. I like eating too. Nobody made a calendar assigning me lunch. Carol's finger moved to the green squares. Wednesdays are flexible. 3 names had been written inside the first Wednesday. Diane, back steps. Melissa, cafe. Carol, garage shelves. I leaned forward to make sure I was reading it correctly. 3 jobs in 1 flexible day. Those aren't full-day jobs, Diane said. My back step is loose. It's dangerous. How long has it been loose? That isn't the point. 2 years? A while. Yet it became urgent Thursday night, when I retired. Diane's cheeks colored. She was not used to being questioned by someone she had already decided was unreasonable. I was going to hire someone, she said. You still can. I don't know who to call. I'll give you a number. That isn't the same as family helping family. No. One costs money. Ron laughed once, but he stopped when Diane looked at him. Carol kept her voice level. Can I finish? I sat back. Please. She turned to the second page. It was not a calendar. It was graph paper with a rough drawing of our basement. My workbench was represented by a rectangle with an X through it. The wall where I kept my clamps had been labeled storage. In the larger open area, somebody had drawn a bed. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the soft rattle of the furnace vent. What's that? I asked. Carol folded her hands. We need to start thinking longer term. Whose bed is that? Mom's. Evelyn's head came up. Carol. Not tomorrow, Carol said quickly. Before winter. The basement has the half bath, and we can put a shower in. If we move the workbench to the garage, you mean the garage where my car and my chair already are? Your car can stay outside. So the plan is to move my mother-in-law into my workroom and my car into the weather. It's our workroom, Carol said. That landed harder than it should have, because she was right. Her name was on the mortgage with mine. She did laundry down there and stored Christmas decorations beside my lumber. I had called it my basement for years, without hearing myself. Evelyn put a hand on Carol's forearm. I told you I wasn't sure. You said the stairs were becoming difficult. They are. That doesn't mean I want to sleep beside a water heater. We'd finish it properly. With what money? I asked. Ron leaned forward. We'd all chip in. How much? We haven't gotten that far. You got far enough to cross out my workbench. Carol stared at me. Why are you making every detail sound hostile? Because nobody's calling them details except the people who decided them. Melissa reached for one of the pastries she had brought, then seemed to realize eating during an ambush looked bad and withdrew her hand. Uncle Frank, she said, I honestly thought you knew. Knew what? All of it. Not the basement drawing, but that you were going to have more time and help everybody. Why did you think that? Aunt Carol said you were looking forward to staying busy. Every face turned toward Carol. She lifted her chin. He has always said he hates being idle. I also hate beets. Did you put that on the calendar? This isn't funny. No, I said, it isn't. I picked up the calendar. Carol had used the same fine point pens she used for our Christmas card list. Yellow for Evelyn, blue for Ron, green for Diane and Melissa, red for household projects. Friday afternoons were white, but there were pencil notes in several of them. Oil change, gutter inspection, Carol dentist. You scheduled your dentist appointment on my calendar? I'll need a ride. You have a car. I don't like driving after they dilate my eyes. That's reasonable. Asking me would also be reasonable. I am asking. Ron looked at the others as if he expected support. This feels like semantics. That's because your name is written in blue 6 times. He sat back again. I placed the calendar on my knees. When did any of you ask me? Nobody answered. I looked at Melissa first. She was the least practiced at family silence. You didn't, she said. Thank you. But I thought Carol had. I didn't ask whether you thought somebody else had. Her eyes dropped. No. I didn't ask. I turned to Diane. She crossed one leg over the other. We discussed what the family needs. When did you discuss it with me? We're doing that now. No, you're presenting it now. Fine. We should have approached it differently. That's not an answer. Her mouth tightened. I did not ask you, Ron said. I never said you had to help me. Then why are you on Tuesday? Carol asked. What projects were coming up? And you just happened to list your entire second floor? I don't need this. He pushed the footrest down and stood. For one hopeful second, I thought he was giving me my chair back. Instead, he paced to the window and folded his arms. I turned to Evelyn. She was studying the graph paper. You didn't ask me, she said, before I could speak. No, I didn't ask Carol either. Carol's face changed, not much. The corners of her mouth lost their firmness. Mom, we talked about this. You talked. I worried. You can't stay in that apartment forever. I was hoping to stay there until they asked me to leave. Diane leaned toward her. No one is trying to force you. Evelyn looked at the crossed-out workbench. It's interesting how many things have been decided that nobody is forcing. I almost smiled. Evelyn caught it and gave me a warning glance. She did not want an ally. She wanted room. Carol stood and gathered the loose pages, leaving the calendar on my knees. All right, she said. Clearly today was a mistake. That depends what you thought the purpose was. The purpose was to make sure no one got overwhelmed. Which person? She looked at me then, and I understood that the answer was her. It did not excuse what she had done. It did, however, make my satisfaction disappear. Diane stood beside her. Carol has been handling Mom's appointments for 3 years. I know. Do you? I've driven Evelyn plenty of times. When Carol asks you. Because Carol knows the schedule. Exactly. There it was. A point sharp enough that I could not swat it away. Diane continued. Ron has his issues. I have mine. Melissa is trying to run 2 businesses. Carol has been the one keeping track of everything. You come in when something breaks, fix it, and everybody tells you how wonderful you are. Diane, Carol said, no, he wants honesty. I want a say in my own week, and Carol wants one in hers. The room went still again. My oak chair, which had felt sturdy when I carried it in, suddenly felt too large. I was sitting in the center like a witness who had mistaken the stand for a throne. Ron broke the silence. Nobody's trying to steal your life, Frank. You wrote it down in colored ink. It was a draft, Carol said. You put my name on top. Because we were discussing your availability. My future, Carol. That's what you called it. She held my gaze. Fine. Your future. Our future. I used the wrong word. No, I think you used the honest one. Melissa finally picked up a pastry, wrapped it in a napkin, and put it into her purse. I'm going to go. Diane looked offended. We're in the middle of something. I know. I'm making it worse by being here. She turned to me. I'm sorry I assumed. I nodded. I still might ask you about the vent hood, she said. You can ask. And you can say no. That's generally how asking works. She gave me a small, unhappy smile and left. Ron followed less gracefully. He muttered that he had things to do, which we all understood meant he wanted us to know his time was valuable. Diane helped Evelyn up, though Evelyn waved her hand away. I'm old, Evelyn said. I'm not luggage. At the door, she looked back at the oak chair. You made that? Yes, it's handsome. Thank you. Too heavy. I'm discovering that. I hope it was worth carrying. Then she left with Diane. The front door closed. Carol and I stood in the wreckage of a meeting where nothing had been broken except the assumption that we knew each other. I picked up the graph paper. How long have you been planning this? A few weeks? With them? Yes, and not once with me. I tried to talk to you. You asked what I wanted to do today. I asked what you pictured for our life. You made a joke. So you called your family? I called mine because yours are scattered across 3 states and barely remember your birthday. That's low. It's true. I folded the graph paper along an existing crease. The answer is no. To which part? The calendar, the basement, all of it. Carol stared at me. Your mother-in-law may need help. Then we discuss what she wants and what each person can do. She needs more than a discussion, and I need more than an assignment. You need purpose, Frank. I have purpose. Doing what? Sitting in a chair you hid from me? The word hid struck cleanly. I didn't hide it. You built it for 6 months and told me it was a table. It changed. Apparently, a lot of things did. I carried the calendar to the coffee table and set it down. I'm not doing this. Carol's eyes filled, but her voice stayed controlled. I waited 40 years for you to have time for us, she said. Now that you do, all you can think about is keeping it for yourself. I wanted to tell her that wasn't fair. The words rose quickly, ready and familiar, but she had already turned away. And what stopped me was the possibility that unfair was not the same thing as untrue. I carried the oak chair back to the garage before dinner. Part of me wanted to leave it in the living room. That would have made a statement, though I wasn't sure what the statement was beyond I can lift heavy furniture when angry. In the garage, the chair fit beneath the window where I had finished sanding it. A pale rectangle on the concrete showed where it had stood before. I ran my hand across one arm. Carol was right. I had hidden it. Inside, she made tomato soup and grilled cheese. She cut her sandwich diagonally and mine straight across, as she had for most of our marriage. Then she set my plate on the table without looking at me. The calendar remained on the coffee table. The graph paper basement plan was gone. Where'd you put the drawing? I asked. In the trash. You didn't have to throw it away. She sat across from me. You said no, I did, so I heard you. The soup was too hot. I took a bite anyway and burned the roof of my mouth. I'm willing to discuss Evelyn, I said. Not tonight. I'm not saying she's our responsibility alone. I understood you the first 4 times. I said it once. You said it all afternoon. We ate quietly. At one point, Carol's phone lit up beside her plate. Diane appeared on the screen. Carol turned it face down. When we went to bed, she placed a pillow between us without making a production of it. Carol had never been theatrical when she was angry. She became efficient. She folded pain into small, practical shapes and put it where nobody could trip over it. I lay awake hearing pieces of the family meeting in the dark. Diane was right that Carol handled Evelyn's appointments. She kept a notebook with medication lists, doctors' names, insurance numbers, and questions Evelyn wanted answered. I had driven them when Carol asked. I had waited in parking lots, fixed the loose arm on Evelyn's kitchen chair, changed the battery in her smoke detector, and accepted praise for being a good son-in-law. I had never opened the notebook. At 6 the next morning, Carol was dressed and pouring coffee into a travel mug. Where are you going? I asked. Mom has blood work at 7:30. You didn't mention it. It was on your calendar. Her tone made it clear that offering to drive would be surrender, and not offering would be proof. I resented the trap, even though she had probably not said it on purpose. I can take her. No, I'm awake. So am I. You don't have to make a point. She screwed the lid onto the mug. That's what you think I'm doing? I think you're angry. I am angry. I'm also taking my mother to an appointment, which is what I was going to do before you brought lumber into the living room. It was a chair. I know what it was. She picked up her purse. Carol. What? I had several possible things to say. I chose the worst one. If you wanted my help, you could ask. Her face went still. I have been asking for years, she said, and walked out. I stood alone in the kitchen until the coffee maker clicked off. Luis Vega called at 9. You alive? He asked. Why does everybody keep checking? You retired. Sometimes men your age sit down and vanish. I've been retired 4 days, exactly when it happens. Luis had been an electrician at the library for 23 years before he left to care for his wife through her final illness. After she died, he spent a year refusing invitations and repairing things in his kitchen at 2 in the morning. The neighborhood workshop had started with him putting a handwritten sign in the window of an empty storefront. Broken lamps, bad switches, stubborn toasters. Saturday. What are you doing? He asked. Drinking coffee. Bring some here. Ours tastes like somebody rinsed a paintbrush in it. I thought you weren't open Mondays. We're not. I'm trying to make us open Mondays. The storefront on Cherokee still looked more abandoned than revived. Half the letters from the previous business remained in the window, so from the street the place appeared to be called Maria's Bride. Inside, Luis had set up 2 long work tables, pegboard, salvage cabinets, and enough extension cords to concern a fire marshal. He took the cardboard tray of coffee from me and inspected my face. You fought with Carol. What makes you say that? You bought 6 coffees. I didn't know who'd be here. Nobody is here. We're closed. He handed me 1 cup back. Congratulations. You have 5 coffees and a marriage problem. I looked around. What needs doing? No. What? You come in looking like that, and before I can ask a question, you want to fix my building. You called me. For coffee? You said you were trying to open Mondays. I am. That is not permission for you to reorganize my pegboard. Your screwdrivers are mixed with your chisels. They've been talking. Don't separate them. I laughed despite myself. Luis leaned against the work table. He was shorter than me, with silver hair he wore combed straight back. His reading glasses hung from a red cord around his neck. Tell me, he said. So I told him about the chairs, the calendar, the colored squares, and the bed drawn where my workbench stood. I left out Carol's last sentence until he asked why I looked guilty. She said she waited 40 years for me to have time for us. Luis nodded slowly. That's a good line. It wasn't a line. That's why it's good. You're supposed to be on my side. I'm on the side of the person who brought coffee. That's me. Then today, I'm on your side. He opened a cabinet and took out a bent desk lamp. Its green metal shade was dented, and the cord had been cut off close to the base. This came in Saturday, he said. Woman named Marcia bought it at an estate sale. Wants to know if it can be saved. Of course it can. That wasn't the question. It's a lamp, Luis. She wants to learn how to fix it. Then she'll need a new socket, cord, strain relief. He raised a hand. She will be here at 10 tomorrow. You can tell her. Then you can let her do it. If she knows what she's doing, she doesn't. That's why we teach. I turned the lamp over. Somebody had tried to pry open the base with a screwdriver and gouge the metal. You'll need liability waivers. Already have them. Safety glasses, second drawer, a first aid kit. He pointed over my shoulder. A red kit hung on the wall. You knew I was going to say yes. I knew you were going to start inventorying things. I put the lamp down. I said I'd think about 2 mornings a week. And I'm thinking, good. Think while mounting that vise. I am officially asking. That mattered more than I wanted it to. We worked until after 1. Luis let me rearrange 1 shelf after making me admit I was rearranging it for myself. At noon, we ate sandwiches at the scarred work table. He told me about the adults who came in on Saturdays, a bartender who wanted to repair her grandmother's radio, a retired accountant with 3 broken fans, a man who brought the same toaster twice because he enjoyed being around people more than he enjoyed toast. You'll like it, Luis said. How do you know? Everybody here is allowed to leave. My phone buzzed. Ron. I considered ignoring it, then answered. What's up? I turned the water back on. That sounds ominous. It's leaking behind the vanity. Turn it off. I just turned it on. Then you've had the experience. Frank, what? Can you come look? It was the first direct request I had received from him in months. Under ordinary circumstances, I would have been in my truck before he finished asking. Not today, I said. Silence. You doing something? Yes. What? The question irritated me. Not because he had no right to ask, but because I wanted my refusal to be sufficient by itself. I'm helping Luis. I thought the whole point was you weren't going to help people. The point was, I choose. So you choose Luis. Today, yes. He made a sound in the back of his throat. Just tell me what I need to check. I asked where the water appeared, how quickly it pooled, and whether he had touched the supply lines. He answered badly. I told him to keep the water off, dry everything, put a bucket underneath, and call the plumber who had given him the estimate. I'm not paying $6,000 for a leak. The estimate was for the whole bathroom. Same guy. Then call a different one. Can't you come for 10 minutes? No. The words sounded clean in the workshop and ugly in my ear. Ron hung up without saying goodbye. Luis had heard enough to understand. How did it feel? He asked. Like kicking a dog. Ron is not a dog, I know. A dog would have hired a plumber. When I got home, Carol's car was in the driveway, but she wasn't in the kitchen. The calendar was no longer on the coffee table. I found it under a stack of mail on the counter, the colored pages folded backward. Carol came downstairs with a laundry basket. How did Evelyn's appointment go? Fine. What did the doctor say? It was blood work, Frank. The blood did not give an interview. I took the basket from her before asking. She let go, then seemed annoyed with both of us. I was at Luis's workshop, I said. I didn't ask. He wants me there 2 mornings a week. Then go. I haven't decided. You don't need my permission? I wasn't asking permission. What were you asking? I set the basket on the table. I don't know. That answer stopped her. For a moment, she looked less angry than tired. Then her phone rang. Ron? She watched it ring twice before answering. What happened? I could hear his voice, but not the words. Carol looked at me. No, he didn't tell me, she said. How much water? I turned toward the basement with the laundry basket. Fine, she said into the phone. I'll come over. I stopped. You don't have to go. She covered the phone. His bathroom is leaking. I told him to shut off the water and call a plumber, and he called me. That doesn't mean you have to run over there. Her eyes hardened. No, Frank. It means he knew which one of us would show up. She took her coat from the hook and left me standing beside a basket of clean clothes, furious with her for going, and with myself for being relieved that I didn't have to. I folded the laundry because there was nothing else in the house that would let me finish it. Carol's shirts went on hangers, towels in thirds, socks paired except for one gray ankle sock that had been single for so long it had become less a problem than a household resident. I carried the basket upstairs, put everything away, and returned to the kitchen. The clock over the stove said 5:40. At 6:15, I reheated the tomato soup. At 7, I called Carol. She didn't answer. At 7:20, she texted, "Plumber here." That annoyed me more than it should have. I had told Ron to call one. He had called Carol instead, and somehow she had achieved the same result after donating an evening to the process. She came home at 8:30 with a dark streak on her sleeve and plaster dust in her hair. "Did you eat?" I asked. "I'm not hungry." "What happened?" Ron loosened the cold water line, trying to get the vanity out. I asked if he touched the supply lines. He said you asked if he had changed them. I asked if he touched them. Apparently he heard something else. She hung her coat and inspected the stain on her sleeve as if it belonged to a stranger. "Did the plumber fix it?" He capped the line. "He'll come back Thursday." "Good. It's going to cost $1,100. That's less than $6,000. He's not getting a bathroom for $1,100. He's getting the privilege of having water in the rest of his house. I put a bowl of soup in the microwave. Carol watched it rotate. You could have saved him that money. Maybe, and you could have saved me 3 hours. I stopped the microwave before the timer finished. You chose to go. Yes, Ron is 62 years old. I know how old my brother is. He called you because I wouldn't come. He called me because water was running into his kitchen ceiling. He said it was pooling behind the vanity. It moved. Water does that. Carol turned away from me. Do you hear yourself? I'm not responsible every time Ron starts a project he can't finish. I didn't say you were. Then why are you angry? Because you knew exactly what would happen. I opened the microwave. Steam rose from the soup and fogged my glasses. What did I know? That if you didn't go, somebody else would. Then nobody should have. And let his ceiling come down? He could call a plumber. He eventually did. Then the system worked. Carol laughed, one hard sound. The system. You mean me? I set the bowl on the table. No, I mean Ron learned that I'm not automatically available. No, Frank. Ron learned that when you aren't available, he can call me. That was true enough to make me angry. She sat and pushed the soup away from her. You get to say no, she said. I understand that. But you're acting like your no lands in an empty room. It doesn't. It rolls downhill. What do you want me to do? Keep saying yes so you don't have to say no? I want you to stop pretending this is simple. I don't think it's simple. You sounded pretty simple on the phone. I was at the workshop. Yes. Luis got a yes. Ron got a lesson. I got wet drywall. I leaned against the counter. Ron called and asked me to come. I said no. What was I supposed to do? Call you and forbid you from going? You might have warned me. I didn't know he'd call you. She looked at me until I had to look elsewhere. All right, I said. I knew he might. Of course you did. But you're still responsible for your answer. And there it is. What? Your new favorite word. She stood, took her untouched bowl to the sink, and poured the soup down the drain. You spent 41 years solving everybody's emergencies, she said. You don't get to retire from the role overnight and act surprised when the rest of us stumble. I'm not surprised. You're standing very comfortably for a man who isn't surprised. She went upstairs. I remained in the kitchen where the smell of tomato soup rose from the drain. At 10 the next morning, Marcia arrived at the workshop in a purple wool coat, carrying a canvas bag and wearing safety glasses over her regular glasses. Luis looked at me. Prepared, he said. I used to run a laboratory, Marcia said. I read your website. We have a website? I asked. I made it last week, Luis said. It says you teach repairs. Marcia placed the damaged desk lamp on the work table. Up close, she looked to be in her late 60s, with short white hair and an expression that suggested she had spent a career watching people contaminate samples after being specifically told not to. My sister had one like this when we shared an apartment, she said. She hated overhead lighting, said it made everybody look guilty. Where is your sister now? Luis asked. Arizona, still suspicious of ceilings. She took off her coat. Beneath it, she wore a sweatshirt that said, Ask me about control groups. I showed her the damaged cord and explained why we couldn't simply attach a plug. When I reached for a screwdriver, Luis cleared his throat. I left my hand where it was. What? I said. Marcia looked between us. Am I supposed to take it? Yes, Luis said. If she wants to, I added. I wore 2 pairs of glasses. I want to. She selected the correct screwdriver without help. I explained how the base came apart. The first screw resisted. Marcia adjusted her grip. Push down more, I said. I am pushing. You'll strip the head. I know what stripping a screw means. I was only... Do you want to fix it? No? Your hands keep volunteering. Luis turned away, but I saw his shoulders move. Marcia got the screw loose. Good, I said. I know. She smiled when she said it, which saved both of us. The repair took nearly 2 hours. I had to stop myself a dozen times from reaching in. Marcia asked precise questions, ignored 2 of my suggestions, and installed the new socket correctly. When the lamp finally lit, its green shade cast a warm circle over the work table. Marcia stared at it longer than the achievement seemed to require. My sister will say I should have bought a new lamp, she said. You could have, I told her. That wasn't the point. Luis handed her a label to write the date of the repair inside the base. After she left, he looked at me. Your hands keep volunteering. I heard her. I may have that printed on a shirt. She knew what she was doing. No, she didn't. She knew she could learn. I swept bits of old insulation from the work table. I spent last night being informed that my no rolls downhill. Luis didn't make a joke. He unplugged the soldering iron and waited. I told him about Ron's leak and Carol going over. Did she have to go? He asked. No. Did she feel like she had to? Probably. That's different. She says I knew he'd call her. Did you? I pushed the broom harder than necessary. Probably, Luis nodded. You and Carol are having 2 different fights. What are they? You are fighting about permission. She is fighting about weight. He said it casually, like he was identifying 2 kinds of wire. I didn't put the weight on her. No. You helped everybody put it on her for 40 years. Then you stepped away and said, look what they did. That's generous coming from a man who disappeared for a year after his wife died. Yes, he said. I am an expert in disappearing. The answer took the fight out of me. We locked up just after 2. I had barely pulled away from the curb when Evelyn called. "Are you driving?" she asked. "Yes," then hang up. "You called me." "I didn't know you were driving. My truck told the phone. I don't trust a truck that talks. I'll call you when I stop." "Fine." She hung up. I pulled into the parking lot of a hardware store and called her back. "I need to pick up a prescription," she said. "All right." There was a pause. "That was me asking," she added. I noticed. "Can you take me at 4? "Yes." "You're allowed to say no. I can take you. I don't want you agreeing because I'm old and might die before dinner. Are you planning to?" "Not before I get my prescription." I picked her up at her apartment, a tan brick building near Tower Grove Park. Evelyn was waiting in the lobby with her purse on her knees and a folded grocery bag tucked beneath one arm. "I thought this was the pharmacy," I said. "It is. The grocery bag is for after. So, this is a trick. You agreed to transportation. I didn't say what I might transport home." Her apartment was on the second floor. The building had an elevator, but it was slow enough that Evelyn claimed she could feel herself aging between the floors. I had repaired her kitchen chair there the previous winter. The place was small, bright, and crowded with framed photographs, ceramic birds, and furniture she had owned longer than I had known Carol. At the pharmacy, Evelyn refused to use the drive-thru because she wanted to confirm the pills looked the same as last month. While she spoke to the pharmacist, I wandered to the seasonal aisle and found road atlases displayed beside travel-sized toiletries. I picked one up. The Great River Road was traced in green along the Mississippi, north through Illinois and Iowa, then beyond. Luis and I had talked about the route years ago. Carol and I had once planned to drive part of it for our 30th anniversary, but the library's cooling system failed during a heat wave. We spent the anniversary at home, eating takeout while I answered calls. I placed the atlas in my basket. Evelyn appeared beside me. "You running away? Planning a trip?" "Does Carol know?" "I haven't planned it yet." That wasn't my question. I put the atlas back, then picked it up again. "No," I said. Evelyn nodded toward the register. "Buy it or don't. Standing here pretending you haven't decided is unattractive." We bought her prescription, the atlas, 2 cans of soup, a loaf of rye bread, and a jar of marmalade that she insisted was cheaper there than at her regular store. Back at her apartment, I carried the bag upstairs. Evelyn took out the bread and set it on the counter. "You can leave the soup," she said. "I can lift cans." "I know. You're hovering. I'm standing. You stand like a man waiting for something to break." I put my hands in my pockets. "Do you want to move in with us?" She placed the marmalade in a cupboard. The shelf was already lined with 6 jars. "I want not to be discussed like a weather system," she said. "That isn't an answer. Now you know how it feels." I waited. She closed the cupboard and looked at me. "I don't want your basement," she said. "I don't want to take your room, and I don't want Carol building a life around the day I can't climb stairs." "Did you tell her that?" I tried. What did she say? That we were only exploring options. She drew a bed. I know. It was a very narrow bed. Despite myself, I smiled. Evelyn didn't. "Carol is tired," she said. "Diane is busy being correct. Ron is busy being Ron. Melissa calls when guilt strikes. And you arrive with a toolbox after the decision has already been made. That's changing." "Yes," Evelyn said. "That is what everybody is afraid of." My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Carol appeared on the screen. "Are you with Mom?" I showed Evelyn. "Tell her yes," she said. I typed the word. 3 dots appeared almost immediately. "Why didn't either of you tell me?" I looked at Evelyn. "You answer," she said. She asked me. She always asks you. That's the problem. I handed her the phone. Evelyn read the message, then gave it back. "No," she said. "It's your phone." I stared at the blinking cursor, trying to find a response that was true without sounding cruel. Finally, I wrote, "Because she asked me directly." Carol did not answer. When I got home, the kitchen was empty. My road atlas lay on the table even though I was certain I had left it in my truck. Carol stood in the doorway behind me. "How far were you planning to go?" she asked, "before you thought to mention it." I hadn't decided. Carol put one hand on the atlas. "You bought a map. That's how people decide where to go. You circled Galena. I was sitting in the truck waiting for your mother to count her pills. In ink? It was the pen I had. How far, Frank?" I pulled out a chair but didn't sit. The whole route, maybe. North first. Possibly all the way to Minnesota. How long? A few weeks? A few? 3? 4? I don't know. She opened the atlas to the folded page. I had traced possible stops with my finger, but Galena was the only place I'd circled. Carol tapped it once. We talked about going there for our anniversary. That was 12 years ago. I remember. So do I, apparently. The way she said it made the remembered trip sound like something I had taken from her and stored until I could use it alone. I wasn't planning to go without you. Her eyes lifted from the map. You weren't? No. Then when were you going to ask? When I had an actual plan. You bought an atlas, chose a route, estimated 4 weeks, and circled the first stop. At what point does it become actual? That's not the same thing as putting my name on a calendar, no. This time you made plans for both of us privately, much healthier. I said I wanted you to come. You said you weren't planning to go without me. Those are different sentences. She was right, and I disliked her for making me hear it. How did you get this? I asked. It was on the seat of your truck. I went out for the reusable bags. You went through it? I opened a road atlas, Frank. I didn't steam your mail. It was folded to the page. It fell open to the page because you broke the spine pressing on it. I looked at the atlas. A faint blue line curved across Illinois where I had dragged the pen without noticing. I was going to talk to you. When? Tonight. Before or after you told me my mother doesn't want to live here? That stopped me. She told you? She called me after you left. Good. No, not good. She said she had to be honest with you because nobody else was listening. She was honest. With you, I asked. Carol closed the atlas. You and Mom had one car ride, and now the two of you are united against me. We're not against you. You bought her groceries. I drove her to the pharmacy. She came home with soup, bread, and enough marmalade to survive a blockade. She put them in the bag. You always do that? Do what? Reduce everything to the part you can defend. You didn't buy the groceries. You only carried them. You didn't plan the trip. You only bought the map. You didn't hide the chair. It only changed from a table. I sat down. Carol remained standing. She looked more wounded than angry now, which was worse. Evelyn said she doesn't want the basement, I said. I heard you. Then we shouldn't keep planning it. I threw away the drawing. You also said you were exploring options. I was, without the 2 people who would live with the option. She folded her arms. You're enjoying this. What? Being the reasonable one. I'm not enjoying any of it. You brought your chair into that meeting like you had been waiting your whole life for the perfect line. I didn't know what was on the calendar, but you knew they'd forgotten your seat, and for once everybody could see exactly what had been done to you. I thought about carrying the oak chair through the doorway while everyone watched. I had been angry, but there had also been a small, clean pleasure in making the insult visible. That doesn't mean I planned it. No. You're best when nobody can accuse you of planning. She pushed the atlas toward me. I put Fridays aside, she said. For what? Us. The Friday squares had been mostly blank. I had noticed the penciled notes, but not asked why the rest of the space was white. You didn't write anything? Because I thought we would decide together. The contradiction was obvious enough that I nearly laughed, but her face stopped me. You planned the other 4 days, I said. I planned what everybody needed. I left room for what we wanted. You don't get credit for leaving me 1 day of my own retirement. I didn't say it was the only day we could spend together. What did you think we'd do? I don't know. Breakfast, a drive, go somewhere without the library calling you home. We could do that any day. I know that now. The kitchen clock ticked behind us. It was the sort of sound you only heard when people had stopped saying what they meant. I wanted you on the trip, I said. Because you want me there? Or because a married man can't disappear for a month without taking his wife? That's not fair. It's a question. I want you there. Then why was Luis the one who knew about it? I stared at her. She nodded, almost to herself. I called him. Why? I wanted to know if you'd mentioned the trip to anyone. You called my friend to check my story? I called our friend because my husband bought a map and wouldn't tell me where he was going. What did he say? That you talked about the river route for years. Then he confirmed it. He also said you were considering 2 mornings a week at the workshop. I told you that. After you went, I was invited. I'm your wife, Frank. I shouldn't have to invite you into your own marriage. She picked up her purse. Where are you going? To see Mom. Does she know you're coming? Carol's hand stopped on the strap. The question had left my mouth before I understood how cruel it sounded. She set the purse down again. No, she said. She doesn't. For a second, I thought she might throw it at me. Instead, she walked upstairs and closed the bedroom door. I slept in the guest room that night without either of us formally deciding it. The mattress sagged toward the center. Around 2 in the morning, I rolled into a valley and woke facing the framed photograph from my retirement. Carol and I stood together beneath the library's marble staircase. Her hand rested on my arm. I looked proud. She looked tired. In the morning, the bedroom door was open, but Carol had already left. Melissa came to the workshop just before noon, carrying a cardboard tube and 2 coffees. I called first, she said. Luis, who was labeling bins at the back table, raised his thumb. She did, he confirmed. Melissa set 1 coffee in front of me. Peace offering. What's in it? Coffee. You run a cafe. Nothing is ever just coffee. Oat milk and 1 pump of vanilla. I don't know what a pump is. You've had one now. She pulled a set of contractor drawings from the tube and unrolled them across the table. Red marks covered the ventilation plan. I am asking for 20 minutes, she said. I set a timer. 20 minutes of what? You looking at this and telling me what questions I should ask, not supervising, not meeting anybody, not owning the outcome. Luis looked over. She practiced. In my car, Melissa said. I checked my watch. All right, she started the timer. The contractor had specified a hood wide enough for her cooking line, but the exhaust route passed through an old masonry wall. I pointed to 3 places where she needed written clarification. Melissa took notes instead of handing me the pen. At 18 minutes, she rolled the plans up. You still have 2 minutes, I said. I'm saving them. That isn't how time works. It's how favors work. She slid the coffee closer to me. Aunt Carol is furious with me. Why you? Because I apologized at the meeting. She's angry you apologized? She thinks I abandoned her when things got uncomfortable. You left because things were uncomfortable. I left because I realized she had told all of us different versions. I waited. Melissa rubbed a spot of dried ink on her thumb. She told me you were worried about having nothing to do. She told Mom you had offered to help with the steps once you retired. She told Ron you'd probably be grateful for a project. And Evelyn? I don't know. She told me she never asked to move. Melissa's face tightened. Grandma said that? To me. She told Mom she'd consider it. Considering isn't agreeing. I know. Her timer chimed. She silenced it. Aunt Carol wasn't trying to hurt you, she said. She was trying to get everybody to stop leaning on her. By leaning them on me, pretty much. The honesty surprised me. Did she say that? No. She said you'd be good at it. At what? Being the person everyone calls. I picked up the coffee and tasted it. The vanilla made it sweeter than I liked, but not unpleasant. She already was that person, Melissa said. I know. Do you? I looked at her. She lifted both hands. Sorry. Timer expired. After she left, Luis came to the table and studied the plans she had forgotten to take. Call her, I said. You have her number. You call her. Why? Because if I do it, I'll end up explaining the wall again. He called. Melissa returned 10 minutes later, laughing at herself. She took the tube, thanked us, and left without asking another question. It was a small thing, but the room felt different after she was gone. Lighter, maybe. A favor had been asked, limited, completed, and allowed to end. Nobody had stormed out. No ceiling had fallen. I got home before Carol. The atlas was where I had left it. I opened it to the Illinois page, found the ink circle around Galena, and drew a question mark beside it. Then I took a blank sheet of paper from the kitchen drawer. At the top, I wrote, Things I Want. The words looked embarrassingly formal. Beneath them, I wrote the river trip and 2 mornings at the workshop. After a long pause, I added Fridays with Carol, then crossed out Fridays and wrote time with Carol that neither of us assigns in advance. I was still staring at that sentence when she came in. She read the page over my shoulder. Is that for me? She asked. It's for both of us. No, she said. I mean, did you write it because you want those things, or because you want me to see you writing them? I put down the pen. I don't know how to answer that without getting it wrong. Carol pulled out the chair across from me and sat. Try getting it true, she said. The true answer is both. Carol's expression didn't soften, but she waited. I want those things, I said. I also wanted you to see me trying to say them. Why? Because apparently saying them out loud hasn't been going well. You haven't been saying them out loud? I'm starting. She pulled the sheet toward her and read my list again. Time with Carol, she said. I crossed out Fridays. I saw. Because assigning one day was the thing I objected to. I understand the logic. You don't sound impressed. Am I on this list because you want me, or because you know I'll be hurt if I'm not? I rubbed my thumb along the edge of the table. You're very good at questions with no safe answer. I asked for a true one. I don't know how to separate wanting you from knowing I could lose you. The kitchen stayed quiet. Carol looked down at the paper. That's closer, she said. She took the pen from me and turned the sheet over. At the top, she wrote, Things I Want, in the same block letters I had used. For nearly a minute, she wrote nothing beneath it. Harder than it looks, I said. Please don't supervise. I raised both hands. She finally wrote, One morning, a week when no one can reach me. That includes me? I asked. Yes. What if the house is on fire? Put it out. You're retired, not helpless, she added. Mom making her own decisions. Good, I said. I'm not asking for a grade. Sorry. Next she wrote, Not being the person everybody calls first. She stopped there. What about the trip? I asked. I don't know if I want to go. Because you're angry? Partly. I was thinking we could start north and take our time. Stop wherever we want. That sounds nice. But I've spent years imagining what we would do once the library stopped getting the best part of you. Now, retirement is here, and I can't tell whether I wanted those things or just wanted to be chosen before a boiler. You were never competing with a boiler. You once left Thanksgiving dinner because the downtown branch smelled like gas. It did smell like gas. It was the floor wax. We didn't know that. She gave me a look. I almost defended the call again. Instead, I said, I left you to make excuses to everybody. You always came back with a good reason. They were real reasons. I know. That was the problem. She tapped the blank space under her list. I don't know what I want when nobody needs something. I was hoping we'd figure it out together. We still can. Maybe. But I don't want to become another project you fix because the workshop is closed. The phone rang on the counter. Diane. Carol looked at the screen until the call stopped. 10 seconds later, it rang again. You should answer, I said. Why? Because she'll assume somebody died. She knows that's how she gets me. The phone continued ringing. Carol picked it up. What? Diane spoke loudly enough that I caught the words, back step. No, Carol said. Frank isn't going to do it. I looked at her. She turned away. He said he would give you a number. Call him and get it. More noise came from the phone. I'm not in the middle. I'm standing in my kitchen. She listened, her jaw tightening. No, Diane, I am not making him punish you. I didn't know he could make you do anything. She hung up. The phone rang immediately. Carol switched it to silent and placed it face down. Well, I said, don't. I wasn't going to say anything. You had a whole speech in your eyebrows. What did she want you to do? Talk sense into you. Did you? No. How did that feel? She looked at me sharply. I realized I had used almost the same words Luis had used after my call with Ron. Never mind, I said. It felt terrible. I'm sorry. She said if Mom falls on those steps, it'll be our fault. Evelyn doesn't use Diane's back door. I know. Then that doesn't even make sense. It doesn't have to. It only has to make me picture Mom falling. Carol folded her list in half. I'm going upstairs. Are we finished? For tonight. She picked up the paper, then hesitated and tore it down the fold. She handed me my half and kept hers. It was not exactly hope, but it was the first thing we had divided that felt fair. I brought the oak chair to the workshop the next morning. Luis was on a ladder changing a fluorescent tube when I wrestled it through the front door. Either your marriage is improving, he said, or that chair got evicted. I want to put a finish on it that won't show every fingerprint. So it got evicted. It lives in the garage. Where do you live? Currently, the guest room. He climbed down and examined the chair. You made this? Yes. It's good, I know. Luis glanced at me. Marcia taught me. We set the chair near the front window where the light was better. I spent an hour rubbing in a thin coat of oil while Luis worked on the storefront sign. He had found replacement letters from a salvage warehouse. None matched, so Maria's Brid was slowly becoming Cherokee Repair in 3 fonts and 4 colors. Around 11, the door opened. Evelyn stepped inside, carrying her purse and an umbrella, though it wasn't raining. Luis looked at me. "Did you schedule a committee?" "I took the bus," Evelyn said. "I am still capable of public transportation." Luis introduced himself. Evelyn inspected the workshop, the mismatched tools, and the half-finished sign. "This looks expensive," she said. "It isn't," Luis replied. "That's what expensive places say before you receive the bill. We accept donations." "I knew there was a bill." She noticed the chair by the window. "You brought it here, for the finish." "May I sit in it?" The question caught me off guard. Of course. Evelyn lowered herself carefully, gripping both arms. The chair gave a faint creak as her weight settled. "What was that?" she asked. "Wood." "I know what wood sounds like when it's thinking about collapsing." "It isn't collapsing." She shifted once, testing it. "The back is good," she said. "The seat is hard. It's oak. So is a church pew. That doesn't make it comfortable." Luis turned away to hide a smile. "I can make a cushion." "Then you should have made a cushion before calling it finished." "It isn't finished." "Good answer." She rested her umbrella across her knees. "I found an apartment. I put down the oilcloth." "What apartment?" "One with an elevator that moves at a normal human speed." "Where?" "Near the botanical garden. Small. 1 bedroom, walk-in shower. They have a vacancy in June." "Does Carol know?" "No." "Does Diane?" "No." "Ron?" Evelyn looked at me. "Why would I tell Ron? He'd ask if there was room to store his toilet." Luis coughed into his fist. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "To come see it." "Why me?" "Because you notice whether buildings work. I'm not going behind Carol's back. You bought a road atlas behind hers. That's why I'm not doing it again." Evelyn studied me for a moment, then nodded. All right what?" "Tell her." "Me?" "You're the one worried about secrets. It's your apartment. It's your wife." Luis moved toward the back room. "I am going to inventory something very far away." Evelyn waited until he disappeared. "I told Carol I would consider the basement because she looked frightened," she said. "Of what?" "Everything. That narrows it down. She worries about me falling. She worries about Diane forgetting an appointment and Ron forgetting that other people exist. She worries that Melissa works too much. She worried you would retire and sit in your underwear until your brain turns soft. I have never spent a day in my underwear. Not the important part." "What did you tell her?" "That I wasn't moving into anyone's basement. And she said we didn't have to decide immediately." Then she measured my dresser. I sat on the edge of the work table. "Why didn't you tell me at the meeting?" "Because I was embarrassed." "About what?" "Needing a plan. Being the plan. Take your pick." She ran one hand over the arm of the chair. "I don't want my daughters arranging me according to who has an empty room. I also don't want to make every decision alone just to prove I can. That's fair. I'm not interested in fair. I'm interested in the apartment. Then tell Carol you want to see it. She'll list everything wrong with it. Maybe something is wrong with it. Then I'll need you to tell me which things matter." I looked toward the back room. Luis was making an impressive amount of noise with a drawer. "I'll go if Carol goes," I said. Evelyn pursed her lips. "And you ask her," I added. "You're enjoying this asking business." "A little." "Fine. I'll ask." She started to stand. I offered my hand, and she ignored it until she was almost upright. Then she took it for the last few inches. "The chair needs a cushion," she reminded me. Carol agreed to the apartment tour on Saturday, although agreed was a generous word for the sound she made. The building was red brick with clean windows and a shallow ramp beside the front steps. Evelyn walked ahead of us with the leasing agent. Carol and I followed several feet behind. "You knew before she called," Carol said. "She came to the workshop. And you didn't tell me. She asked you that afternoon. You had 4 hours. I told her I wouldn't come unless you did. Congratulations." "What should I have done?" "Called me." I was trying not to speak for her. "You're doing a lot of trying lately." The apartment was on the 3rd floor. It smelled faintly of new carpet and somebody else's lunch. The living room was smaller than Evelyn's current one, but sunlight filled it. The bathroom had grab bars, a built-in shower seat, and a door wide enough for a walker. Carol opened every cabinet. She checked the windows, water pressure, thermostat, and emergency pull cords. I inspected the electrical panel and found it properly labeled. Evelyn stood in the center of the bedroom, watching us examine her possible future from opposite walls. "What do you think?" Carol asked me. I looked at Evelyn. What do you think? Carol closed the closet door harder than necessary. Evelyn walked to the window. Below us, a courtyard held 3 benches and a row of raised garden beds. I think I could live here, she said. You could live with us? Carol replied. I know. We'd be right there. I know. You wouldn't have to eat alone. Evelyn turned from the window. Sometimes, she said, I like eating alone. Carol stared at her. The leasing agent pretended to study the thermostat. On the drive home, Evelyn sat in the back seat. Carol drove. I rode beside her, close enough to touch her, but careful not to. After we dropped Evelyn off, Carol stayed parked at the curb. You think you helped her choose? She said. I tried to help her see the place. You helped her choose against me. She isn't choosing against you. That's easy for you to say. Everybody's new future seems to involve needing less of me. I turned toward her. Carol's hands remained on the steering wheel. You all keep telling me I should want that, she said. Has it occurred to anybody to ask what's left of me when I'm no longer necessary? I knew the answer I was supposed to give. You're still a wife, a daughter, a sister. You're still you. Every version sounded like something printed inside a sympathy card. Maybe, I said, you find out what's left. Carol's head turned slowly. That sounded better before I said it. I hope so. I mean, you shouldn't have to be necessary to matter, says the man who built his whole personality around being necessary. That's how I know. She looked through the windshield at the entrance to Evelyn's building. When the library didn't need you anymore, 86 people came to a party and told you who you had been, she said. Neil made a speech. They gave you a clock. You came home with proof that your time belonged to you now. You hated the clock. I hate what it represents. It represents bad gift selection. It represents an ending. Nobody throws a party when a woman stops being the person everybody calls. They just get angry that she didn't answer. I thought about Diane calling twice over a loose step. What would you want a party for? I asked. That is exactly the kind of question a maintenance supervisor asks. What's wrong with it? You want a measurable occasion. A date, chairs, cake. I thought chairs were the problem. She almost smiled. It appeared and vanished so quickly I might have imagined it. I don't want a party, she said. I want to know I'm allowed to change without everybody treating it like a service interruption. You are. You can't grant me that. I know. And you can't fix the fact that I don't know how. I know. She released the steering wheel. Pale marks remained in her palms from gripping it. I'm trying not to turn this into another problem I solve for you, I said. You're not very good at it. No. But you're trying. Yes. She started the car. We did not resolve anything on the drive home. We did, however, stop for lunch without checking whether anyone needed us first. Carol ordered a turkey sandwich and left half of it untouched. I did not ask if she wanted me to finish it. That may sound like a small achievement. In our marriage, it qualified as experimental behavior. 2 mornings later, I woke to find her side of the bed empty. I was still sleeping in the guest room, so this required investigation. The bedroom door stood open. Her robe was on its hook. Downstairs, the coffee maker was cold, and her car was gone. I called her. The phone went straight to voicemail. I waited 10 minutes and called again. Still off. By the 3rd call, I had constructed a series of increasingly unreasonable explanations. Flat tire, chest pain, a stranger at a gas station. Carol would have been irritated by every one of them, especially the stranger, because she had spent years reminding me that she was capable of buying gasoline without being abducted. I checked the counter for a note. Nothing. Her half of the list was gone from beneath the ceramic fruit bowl where she had left it. One morning, a week when no one can reach me, I stood in the kitchen holding my phone, confronted by the unpleasant fact that she had done exactly what she said she wanted. She came home at 11:30 carrying a small potted fern and a paper bag from a bakery. Where were you? I asked. The botanical garden. Your phone was off. I know. I called 3 times. I know that now. You could have left a note. I could have. She placed the fern on the windowsill. Did you choose not to? Yes. Why? Because a note would have turned my morning into something I was still managing for you. I thought something happened. Something did. I walked through the Japanese garden. I sat on a bench. I bought a fern I will probably kill. That isn't what I meant. I know. She opened the bakery bag and took out 2 scones. I brought you one. I thought this was your unreachable morning. It was. It ended. She handed me the scone. I wanted to stay angry, but it was cranberry orange, which she knew I liked, and I could see from the damp ends of her hair that she had walked through the mist without an umbrella. She looked calmer than she had in weeks. "Did you enjoy it?" I asked. "Parts." "What parts?" "Not telling you." I stared at her. She laughed. A real laugh this time. "That was a joke, Frank. I knew that." "You absolutely did not." She poured herself coffee. "I used to go there with Mom," she said, before her knees started bothering her. She would read every label, even when the plant was obviously a rose. "That sounds like Evelyn." I kept thinking I should call her. "But you didn't." "No." How did that feel? Like I had left the stove on? I smiled. "Don't get smug," she said. "I'm still angry with you." "I know, and I don't want to discuss the road trip today." "All right." Mom applied for the apartment. That surprised me. "Already?" The leasing agent called about a reference. Mom listed me. "Did you give one?" "Of course. Are you okay?" Carol tore her scone exactly in half. "No," she said, "but I gave one." Evelyn invited all of us to dinner on Sunday. She claimed she had too much food in her freezer and needed help eating it before she moved. The application had not been approved and no lease had been signed, but Evelyn was already referring to her current apartment as the old place. She made pot roast, mashed potatoes, and green beans cooked long enough to surrender any connection to a garden. Ron arrived carrying a bottle of wine. Diane brought a salad nobody touched. Melissa came late with 2 pies and apologized to the room before taking off her coat. Evelyn had assigned seats, which made everybody look at me. "I have enough chairs," she said. "Sit down." I sat beside Carol. Ron was across from us, Diane beside him, and Melissa squeezed in at the end. Dinner began with weather, traffic, and Melissa's cafe. She said the contractor had rerouted the exhaust without increasing the price. I asked the right questions, she told me. "You did. 3 of them." I heard. A normal uncle might say, "Congratulations." "Congratulations?" It's less moving when requested. Ron carved his roast with unnecessary force. "My plumber says your advice was right," he said. The table went quiet. I waited for the rest. "That's all," Ron said. "Thank you." He also says whoever opened the wall last year had no idea what he was doing. That was you. I'm aware. Diane put down her fork. "Can we make it through one meal without everybody congratulating themselves for personal growth?" "I haven't announced mine yet," Evelyn said. She set her napkin beside her plate. "I was approved for the apartment. I'll sign the lease Tuesday." Diane's reaction arrived first. "Tuesday? Mom, that's too fast. I'm moving in June, not Tuesday. Even I know a signature won't carry my furniture. You haven't looked at enough places. I looked at 3. You told me about one. I went to the others with a woman from my building." "What woman?" "Her name is Joanne. You don't know her. I could have gone." "You were working?" "I would have made time." Evelyn's eyebrows lifted. "That is a very popular sentence in this family." Diane looked at Carol. "Did you know about the other apartments?" Carol shook her head. Ron drank his wine. The one near the garden looked fine to me. Every face turned toward him. "You saw it?" Diane asked. "Online?" "When?" "Mom sent me the link." "You never said anything." "Nobody asked?" I watched Diane struggle with the fact that Ron, historically the least dependable person at the table, had been consulted before her. "It has an elevator," he continued. "Grab bars, people around, better than a basement." Carol's fork touched her plate with a sharp click. Ron noticed. "No offense?" "It's a little late to add that," she said. "I'm only saying Mom should have her own place. You were happy to let her move into ours at the meeting. I thought that's what she wanted. She was sitting right there. So were you." Melissa covered her mouth with her napkin. Diane glared at Ron. Evelyn raised her voice just enough to stop them. "I am signing the lease Tuesday. I am not requesting a vote." "You asked us to dinner," Diane said. "I asked you to eat pot roast. You knew we would have concerns. I knew you would have concerns if I changed toothpaste. That's unfair. It's inherited." Diane turned to me. "And what do you think?" 6 days earlier, I would have answered. I would have listed the electrical panel, shower access, ramp, distance to the pharmacy, and every other fact I had collected. I would have made Evelyn's decision sound like mine because facts were safer when I held them. I looked at Evelyn. She said she isn't requesting a vote. Diane sat back. "Convenient." "Yes," I said. "For Evelyn." Carol pushed her chair away from the table. "I need some air." She walked out before anyone could stop her. I waited, counting to 10 for no useful reason. Then I followed. She stood on the landing outside Evelyn's apartment with her arms folded. The hallway smelled of pot roast and somebody's laundry detergent. "I'm sorry," I said. "For what?" "I don't know yet." "Then save it. I didn't tell Evelyn what to choose." "I know. I didn't know about the other apartments." "I know. I wanted you included, and I was. She needed a reference. That's not all you are to her." Carol looked toward the closed apartment door. "Everybody in there has a new version of themselves," she said. "Mom is independent. Melissa asks direct questions. Ron hires plumbers. You have boundaries and a workshop. Diane still seems the same." She gave me a tired look. "And me?" she asked. "I'm the woman everybody had to escape so they could become healthier." "That isn't true. Mom toured apartments without telling me. Melissa apologized to you and not me. Ron thinks hiring one plumber has turned him into a functioning adult. You all get to learn something, and I get blamed for the system that kept you comfortable. I'm not blaming you. You brought a chair into a room full of my family and made me look like I had erased you. There was no seat." "I know." Her voice cracked on the last word. "I know there was no seat, Frank. I was the one who arranged the room. I had been so focused on the insult that I had never asked how it happened." Carol pressed her fingers to her eyes. "I counted wrong," she said. "Then Ron sat in your recliner, and I saw there was nowhere for you. I was going to bring another chair before you came in. But you didn't." "No." "Why?" She lowered her hands. "Because for one terrible second, it felt honest." The apartment door opened behind us. Evelyn stepped into the hallway, took one look at Carol, and stopped. "I didn't choose the apartment to get away from you," she said. Carol wiped beneath one eye. "Then why didn't you take me to see the others?" "Because I needed to know what I thought before I heard what you feared." "That's a nice way of saying you couldn't think around me. It's an honest way." Carol nodded as if Evelyn had handed her something heavy. Then she turned to me. "Take me home." On the drive back, she sat against the passenger door with her face toward the window. I did not turn on the radio. Halfway there, she said, "I think I need more than one unreachable morning." "How much more?" "I don't know." I tightened my hands on the wheel. "Are you leaving? I'm asking for room." "We have rooms. That isn't what I mean." "No," I said. "I guess it isn't." She looked at me then. For the first time since the family meeting, I understood that my marriage was not waiting patiently for us to become better people. It was changing while we argued, and neither of us had decided what shape it would take. Carol packed a bag when we got home. Not a large one. 3 shirts, 2 pairs of pants, underwear, her toothbrush, and the paperback mystery she had been reading for months. She moved through the bedroom slowly, as if packing too fast would turn a request for room into an exit. "Where are you going?" I asked. "Diane's." "Does she know?" I called from the car. I stood in the doorway. "For how long?" 3 nights. "Why 3? Because 1 feels dramatic and a week feels like a decision." "You don't think 3 is dramatic?" "I think carrying a 70-pound chair into a family meeting is dramatic. We apparently have different scales." I let that pass. "Do you want me to call you?" "No." "What if something happens?" "To whom?" "Anybody." "Then use your judgment." "That hasn't been going well." She folded a sweater and placed it in the bag. "I need a few days when I am not your wife at breakfast, Mom's daughter by lunch, and the family switchboard all afternoon. You'll still be Diane's sister." "I know. I may have selected poorly." That almost became a smile. Neither of us trusted it. "Are we separated?" I asked. Carol stopped packing. "I don't know what word applies." "I'd like to know." "So would I, Frank." She zipped the bag. "What am I supposed to do for 3 days?" The question came out before I could hear how helpless it sounded. Carol looked at me with something between affection and exhaustion. "Anything you want," she said. "Isn't that what you were asking for?" She carried the bag downstairs. I followed, then stopped near the front door because following her all the way to the car seemed too much like I was either helping her leave or trying to block it. She put on her coat. "I'm not doing this to punish you. I know. I don't think you do. Will you come back Thursday? That's the plan." "Plans change." "Yes," she said. "They do." The door closed behind her. For the first hour, being alone felt like having a house to myself. By the second, it felt like the house had itself, and I happened to be inside it. Carol had taken her travel mug, but left her gardening shoes beneath the bench. Her reading glasses were on the side table. One of her earrings sat beside the bathroom sink. I found evidence of her everywhere, yet the rooms felt stripped of instruction. No dinner needed cooking at a particular time. No television show was waiting for both of us. No one would care if I slept in my clothes or ate peanut butter over the sink. I did neither. I made scrambled eggs, put them on a plate, and sat at the table like a civilized man whose wife had not just packed 3 days of underwear. That night, I moved back into our bed, then moved out again after 10 minutes. The guest room mattress was uncomfortable, but using Carol's empty side felt worse. At the workshop the next morning, Luis inspected the oak chair. "The oil cured," he said. "Good. You can take it home." "Not yet. It is a chair, Frank. It is Reach's chair. Evelyn says it needs a cushion." "Evelyn is right. I'll make one." "With your extensive upholstery experience, how hard can it be?" Luis closed his eyes briefly. Every disaster begins with a retired man asking that question. The front door opened before I could defend myself. Ron entered carrying a cabinet door under one arm. "I called," he announced. Luis nodded. He did. Ron placed the door on the work table. The white paint was chipped, and one hinge had torn out of the wood. "This is from the vanity," he said. "The new vanity?" I asked. "The existing one. The one you were removing. I've revised the plan. To keeping it, to not spending $3,000 replacing something that mostly works." I ran a finger over the damaged hinge holes. "You need to fill these before you re-drill." "I know." "Then why are you here?" Ron looked at me. "Because I don't know how." The answer was so direct that I had nothing ready for it. Luis set out glue, dowels, a drill, and 2 clamps. Then he walked to the other side of the room with all the subtlety of a waiter, leaving a couple to discuss a proposal. I showed Ron how to clean out the broken fibers and glue in a hardwood plug. He tried to cut the dowel too quickly and splintered one end. "You're forcing it," I said. "It's a saw. It still knows. You and wood have become very spiritual since Thursday. Slow down." He cut another piece. While the glue set, Ron wandered over to my chair. "You made this?" "Yes." "Why?" "To sit in. You could buy a chair. So could you." He glanced at the cabinet door and nodded. "Fair." We stood in silence for a minute. Then he said, "Carol staying at Diane's?" I turned toward him. "How do you know?" "Diane called me." "Of course she did. She thinks Carol left you. It's 3 nights." "That isn't what Diane thinks." "What does Diane think?" "That you're having some kind of late-life rebellion." "Because I won't rebuild her steps?" "Mostly because of the chair. The chair has acquired more influence than I intended." Ron ran his palm over the back. "It was a good entrance," he said. "I thought you didn't appreciate it. I was in the recliner, best seat in the house." I looked at him. He smiled, then let it fade. "Carol used to call me when you worked late," he said. "When?" "Birthdays, holidays, any dinner where she'd spent the first hour telling everybody you were on your way. I was usually on my way. Eventually. She complained about me? No, that would have been healthier. She explained you." I leaned against the table. "What did she say?" "That a pump failed. A branch manager locked himself out. There was water where water shouldn't be." "You were always helping somebody." "I was working, I know." Ron checked the glue, even though I had told him not to touch it. "Diane and I used to make jokes about it," he said. "Then you'd show up and fix her sink or my furnace, and we'd feel guilty. So, you asked me to fix more things? You were easier when you were fixing something. That was not an accusation I could dismiss. What does that mean? You didn't talk much. You came in, found the problem, and everybody liked you. I talked. You told us what was wrong with the pipe. Pipes were usually why I was there." "Exactly." Luis dropped something metal in the back room. I suspected he was listening. Ron picked up the repaired cabinet door after the glue set. I made him drill the pilot holes himself. He installed the hinge crooked, swore, removed it, and tried again. The second time, it sat straight. "There," he said. "There." He waited as if expecting me to congratulate him. "Normal brothers might say something," he said. "Melissa has been talking to you. She told me about the vent hood. You did good." He looked at the hinge, pleased despite himself. At the door, he stopped. "For what it's worth, I don't think Carol left you. What do you think?" "I think she left us." The word followed me for the rest of the day. Carol did not call that night. I respected her request until respecting it began to feel suspiciously like hiding. At 9, I sent one message. I hope you're getting what you needed. She answered 20 minutes later. I'm finding out. On Thursday afternoon, her car pulled into the driveway at 3:10. I was in the garage attempting to sew a zipper into a square of dark blue canvas. The cushion had become a lesson in why people specialized. Carol appeared in the doorway with her bag. "What is that?" she asked. "A cushion. It looks like an envelope that lost a fight. I haven't turned it right side out. Will that help?" I was hoping. She set her bag down and came closer. I had missed her face in ways photographs did not address. "You came back," I said. "I said I would. I wasn't sure. Neither was I." She touched the canvas, then looked at the oak chair. "Why is the chair here?" "I took it to the workshop to finish the oil." "You took it out of the garage?" "For 2 days." "That isn't what I meant." I understood. The chair had gone from secret project to weapon to object. Other people sat in. Carol had only seen it carried into a meeting. "I'll bring it inside when the cushion's done. Do you want it inside?" "Yes." "Where?" "I don't know." She nodded. "How was Diane's?" I asked. "Educational." "In what way?" "She spent the first night telling me everything wrong with you. The second morning, she asked me to call the handyman because she didn't like his tone." "Did you?" "No." "What happened?" "She called him herself. He fixed the step this morning. That fast?" "He replaced one board and tightened the railing. So, it wasn't a major job. It was to Diane when somebody else was supposed to do it." Carol sat in the oak chair before I could warn her about the unfinished cushion. She ran her hands along the arms. "The seat is hard," she said. "Your mother mentioned that. She's usually right about furniture." "What else happened?" "Diane asked me to take her car in because it was making a noise. She asked me to proofread an email to her insurance agent. She wanted me to call Mom and explain why the apartment was a bad idea." "Did you?" "No." "How did that feel?" "Stop asking me that like you're Luis." I put down the zipper. "Sorry." It felt awful. Then it felt quiet. She stared through the open garage door. "I thought if you took over some of the family things, I could finally step back without making everyone angry at me." There it was, spoken plainly. "You were handing me your job," I said. "Yes." "And calling it purpose." Her mouth tightened. "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me that?" "Because I thought you'd say no." I did say no, after I made it impossible to say yes without surrendering. I pulled the other stool closer, but didn't sit. "I liked being the one people called," I said. "Not all the time, but enough." Carol looked at me. I could walk into a mess and know what to do. Everybody listened. Then I went home before anybody asked what I felt about anything. I asked. I usually fix something. You did. It worked for both of us until it didn't. She studied the chair beneath her. "I'm not ready to act normal," she said. "I don't think we remember what normal was. I'm serious." "So am I." Her phone rang inside the house. A second later, the answering machine picked up, and Diane's voice came through the kitchen speaker. "Carol, call me. Mom says she's hiring movers without discussing what we're keeping, and Melissa is encouraging her." Carol closed her eyes. "You don't have to answer," I said. "I know." Diane continued leaving a message long enough to prove she did not. When the machine finally clicked off, Carol opened her eyes. "I'm going to call her back." I felt disappointment rise. "But I'm not fixing it," she added. "I'm telling her Mom's things belong to Mom. You don't need me there." "No." She stood, then paused beside me. "And if Diane says this is you talking through me, I'm going to tell her the truth." "What truth?" "That you didn't make me stop taking care of everyone." Carol picked up her bag. "You just made it impossible for me to pretend I wasn't choosing to." Carol called Diane from the kitchen. I stayed in the garage, though with the door into the house open, privacy was more of a gesture than a fact. "No," Carol said. "Mom decides what goes." I could hear Diane's voice, but not the words. "I don't care if the dining set has been in the family for 80 years. It's Mom's dining set." Another burst from Diane. "Frank has nothing to do with this." My name grew louder through the phone. He is in the garage sewing a terrible cushion. I looked down at the canvas in front of me. "It is terrible," Carol continued. "That doesn't make him responsible for Mom's movers." Diane spoke for a long time. Carol interrupted her. "Do you hear what you're doing?" Silence followed. "You called me because Mom hired movers. You want me to stop her, organize the furniture, and make Frank alter a table she doesn't want. Then you're accusing him of controlling me because I won't. More silence. No, I'm not choosing him over you. I'm choosing not to do the thing you want. Carol's voice began to shake. She hated hearing it happen and usually spoke faster to hide it. I love you, Diane. Call Mom. Ask what help she wants. Then believe her answer. She hung up. I waited in the garage until she came to the doorway. How did it go? I asked. She said, you've changed me. What did you say? That she gives you too much credit. Thank you. It wasn't a compliment. I understood. She looked at the half-sewn cushion. You attached the zipper backward. I was wondering about that. The pull will be inside. That seems secure. She came over, picked up the seam ripper, and sat on the stool. What are you doing? Preventing you from turning this into a drawstring bag. I can fix it, I know. I'm choosing to help. She removed the first stitch. I sat across from her and held the canvas steady. It was the closest our hands had been in days. She did not move back into the marriage just because she moved back into the house. I remained in the guest room. We drank coffee together in the mornings, but stopped assuming the other person would be home for dinner. Carol kept one morning a week to herself, sometimes at the botanical garden, sometimes in places she did not explain. After the third week, I stopped checking the clock. I spent Tuesdays and Fridays at the workshop. Luis insisted on calling me an instructor. I preferred volunteer, but he said volunteers were people who handed out brochures and left before cleanup. Marcia returned with a small fan that buzzed but would not turn. She repaired it while I sat on my hands. Ron brought in the old vanity drawer after discovering it dragged. He planed the edge himself and removed too much. Instead of blaming the tool, he glued on a thin strip and tried again. Melissa came once with a cafe stool and 3 employees, all adults who wanted to learn how to tighten the joints. I almost fixed the first stool while explaining. Melissa slapped my hand away. Your hands are volunteering, she said. The phrase had spread. The calendar from the family meeting stayed folded beneath the mail. Nobody threw it away. I sometimes saw one corner of yellow or blue when I reached for an envelope. Carol saw it too. Neither of us moved it. Evelyn's packing began with books. She owned hundreds, most of them hardcovers she had no intention of reading again, and no intention of admitting she did not need. The new apartment had room for 2 bookcases. On the first Saturday, she summoned all of us to sort them. This is not a democracy, she announced when we arrived. I decide. You carry. She had placed cardboard boxes around the living room labeled Keep, Give Away, and Diane, because she claimed Diane had never met an object she couldn't assign sentimental value. That is insulting, Diane said. It's also the largest box, Evelyn replied. Ron picked up a biography of Harry Truman. Keep, give away. You haven't looked. I lived through enough of him. Melissa sat cross-legged beside the bookcase, scanning titles. Carol worked near Evelyn, holding each book up without comment. I carried full boxes to the hallway. The system worked for almost an hour. Then Diane found a set of cookbooks with cracked red spines. These were Grandma's. Yes, Evelyn said, we have to keep them. You keep them? I don't have room. Neither do I. But we can't give them away. Evelyn took the top cookbook, opened it, and shook out 3 newspaper clippings and a grocery receipt from 1978. Your grandmother made 6 things, she said. Pot roast, meatloaf, chicken, potatoes, beans, and criticism. She did not need 12 books. That's 6 things. Criticism was a side dish. Ron laughed. Diane did not. Carol, Diane said, you take them. Carol kept holding the book in her hands. I don't want them. You have room. That isn't the same thing. Put them in the basement, no. The word was quiet, but every person in the room heard it. Diane's gaze moved toward me, as if she expected to find my hand inside Carol like a puppet. I picked up a box and left for the hallway. Behind me, Diane said, You're really doing this? Doing what? Carol asked. Acting like none of us matter. I said I don't want cookbooks. It's not about the books. No, it never is. I stopped outside the apartment door. My old instinct told me to return, translate, lower the temperature, give Diane a practical task, and offer to store the books temporarily. Temporary storage was how objects moved into our basement and became part of the foundation. I kept walking. When I came back, the cookbooks were in the box marked Diane. Diane stared at them as if she had been betrayed by cardboard. At lunch, we ate sandwiches from Melissa's cafe. Evelyn sat in her kitchen chair, the one whose arm I had repaired. Carol leaned against the counter rather than sit beside me. Ron examined an old framed photograph he had found between books. It showed Carol and Diane in their 20s on the front steps of Evelyn's old house. Carol wore white shorts, enormous sunglasses, and a red scarf tied around her hair. "You look like you're fleeing to France," Melissa said. "I was going to a gas station," Carol replied. "What happened to the scarf?" Evelyn pointed at Diane. "She borrowed it. I gave it back. You gave back a blue one. That was 40 years ago. It was a good scarf." Ron handed me the photograph. Carol's face in it was turned away from the camera, laughing at something outside the frame. I had met her the following summer. I realized I had no idea what had made her laugh before I knew her. "You want this?" Evelyn asked Carol. Carol looked at the picture. "Yes." Diane opened her mouth. "Do you?" Evelyn asked her. Diane closed it. "No." Then we have achieved civilization. By late afternoon, the bookcases were half empty. Evelyn had kept more than would fit and agreed to make a second pass later. It was progress without pretending she had become a different woman. As we carried the last boxes downstairs, Diane cornered me near the elevator. "Are you satisfied?" she asked. "With what?" Carol saying no to everything. She said no to cookbooks. She barely talks to me. Maybe talk about something you don't need her to do. Diane crossed her arms. "You always disliked how close we were. That isn't true. You used to joke that when one Bennett woman sneezed, the other two reached for tissues. That was Evelyn's joke. You repeated it. Once. Carol was there for me when my marriage ended. She was there when Mom got sick. She was there every time you were busy being important. I know, and now you've convinced her that love is some kind of trap. I haven't convinced her of anything. Then why did this start the day you retired?" The elevator arrived with a chime. The doors opened, but neither of us moved. "Because that's the day you all showed me the calendar," I said. Diane's expression hardened. "We were trying to help." "No. You were trying to preserve an arrangement that worked for you, and it worked for you too." "Yes." The answer surprised her. "It worked for me because I got thanked for arriving at the end," I said. "Carol did everything before that." Diane looked toward the apartment door. She never said she minded. She did. Just not in words either of us wanted to hear. The elevator doors closed again. Diane pressed the button. "So now what?" she asked. "Everybody keeps score?" "No." "Because that's what it feels like. Maybe everybody carries enough that Carol doesn't need a score." The elevator opened a second time. Diane stepped inside. "You sound very wise lately," she said. "I have 2 mornings a week where people tell me when I'm wrong. Must be exhausting." The doors closed between us. Carol was waiting beside my truck with the framed photograph tucked under her arm. "I didn't need you to talk to Diane," she said. "I didn't. You were standing by the elevator for 5 minutes. She talked to me. And I didn't apologize for you." Carol considered that. "Thank you. I also didn't defend you." Her eyes narrowed. "Why not? You didn't need me to. That could become a convenient philosophy. I thought you handled it." She shifted the photograph to her other arm. "I did." There was pride in the words and resentment that she had needed to. On the drive home, she held the old photograph on her lap. "What made you laugh?" I asked. "When?" "In that picture." She looked down at it. "I don't remember." "Were you going to the gas station?" "We were coming back. Mom's car had overheated." "Who took the picture?" "Ron, I think." "What was funny?" I said I don't remember. She sounded irritated, then softened. Maybe Diane had just told me I looked ridiculous. "You didn't." "I had a scarf tied around my head." "You looked happy." I probably was. The road atlas was still on the kitchen table when we got home. I had stopped hiding it under mail, though I had not opened it since Carol returned. She placed the photograph beside it. "Show me the route," she said. I opened to Illinois and traced the road north along the river. Alton, Père Marquette, Quincy, Hannibal across the water, Galena farther north. "How long do you really want to go?" she asked. 4 weeks. That's a long time." "Yes, I don't want 4 weeks." The disappointment came quickly, followed by the urge to pretend it hadn't. "All right, I didn't say don't go, I know. Do you?" I looked at her. Carol touched Galena with one finger. "I could do the first week," she said. "Maybe 10 days. Then I want to come home. Alone? I've been operating a car for 46 years. That's not what I meant. I know. I want to find out what this house feels like when nobody needs me and you aren't watching me not be needed. The sentence hurt, though I understood it. And I want to find out whether you still want the road when I'm not beside you, she said. Is this a test? No, tests have correct answers. She took her half of the list from her purse and unfolded it beside the map. Below the 3 things she had written before, she had added another. Something I choose before anyone else asks. What is it? I said. I haven't decided. When will you? When it becomes actual. I looked at her. Carol smiled. You bought an atlas, she said. I'm considering my options. Evelyn made her assignments for moving day on index cards. She called each of us separately, asked what we were willing to do, then wrote one name and one task on each card. Mine said lamps and electronics. Ron had furniture legs. Melissa had food and coffee. Diane had final kitchen boxes. Carol's card said, come at 2, no task. Carol read it twice. What does come at 2 mean? It means come at 2, Evelyn said. We were standing in Evelyn's old kitchen. Half the cabinets were empty, and dishes wrapped in newspaper covered the counter. Everyone else has a job. Everyone else asked for one. I asked what you needed. I need you to come at 2. For what? So I can show you the new place after the movers leave. You don't want me here in the morning? I want you there in the afternoon. Carol folded the card along its center. That's not the same answer. It's the answer I have. Evelyn sealed a box of baking pans. I watched Carol decide whether to argue. Her fingers pressed the fold flat, then relaxed. All right, she said, I'll come at 2. On moving morning, the truck arrived 35 minutes early, which meant Diane arrived 12 minutes after everything began and behaved as if the movers had violated a treaty. No one told me they were coming before 8, she said. The company called at 7, Evelyn replied. You should have called me. I was getting dressed. You could have put them off. They were here to move me. Putting them off seemed rude. Ron carried a toolbox into the living room. Where do you want me? Evelyn handed him his card. I know my job, he said. Then why did you ask? To be polite. You can be polite while removing the legs from the dining table. The table had been purchased by Evelyn's parents in 1946 and had survived 4 houses, 3 children, 2 refinishing attempts, and decades of meals no one remembered accurately. It would not fit in the new apartment. Diane had agreed to take it after discovering that agreement was the only way to keep it. She had not, however, measured her dining room. Wait, she said as Ron turned the table over. Maybe we should move it to my house first and see. The senior mover, a broad woman named Keisha, looked at her clipboard. We have one delivery address. I'm only 15 minutes away. We have one delivery address. We could pay extra. Keisha's face suggested extra money would not create extra enthusiasm. Evelyn taped a paper to the underside of the table. Donation pickup Thursday. Diane pulled it off. Mom, you don't have room. I can make room. You said that about the cookbooks. They are still in my hallway. I've been busy. Evelyn took the paper back and smoothed it against the wood. The table is being donated. To strangers? Yes. That is who receives donations. Diane looked at me. Couldn't you cut it down? I was disconnecting a lamp across the room. Probably. There. See? Evelyn said. I don't want him to. It wouldn't be difficult. That isn't the issue. It's a beautiful table. Then let someone else eat at it. Diane's eyes filled unexpectedly. Until that moment, I had thought she was fighting over possession. The tears made it clear she was fighting time, which was harder to label and impossible to put on a truck. Evelyn saw it too. She crossed the room, placed both hands on the table, and said, Your father hated this thing. Diane laughed through her nose. He did not. He hit his knee on that corner for 37 years. He sat in the same place. He was stubborn. You kept it after he died, because I was used to hitting my hip on the other corner. Diane touched the back of one chair. I remember him sitting there. So do I. What if I'm not ready to give it away? Evelyn's voice softened. Then come sit at it before Thursday. But it is leaving. Diane nodded. She kept one of the chairs. The move proceeded in bursts. Melissa arrived with coffee labeled by name and sandwiches packed in a cooler. She had brought one for Keisha and each member of the crew after calling the company to ask how many people were coming. Ron removed furniture legs without damaging anything, though he put the screws from Evelyn's bed frame in his pocket and spent 20 minutes accusing the movers of losing them. I disconnected lamps, taped cords, photographed the television hookups, and found 3 extension cords Evelyn insisted did not belong to her. At 11, a mover pointed to the kitchen chair whose arm I had repaired. "This going?" Evelyn looked at it. "No," she said. "Donation." "That chair is solid," I told her. "I know. You use it. I used it here. You could use it there." She gave me the look reserved for people who had mistaken information for authority. "Donation," she repeated. I stepped back. The movers carried it out. By 1:30, the old apartment was empty except for the dining table, Diane's chosen chair, the donation boxes, and dust shadows where furniture had stood. Without her ceramic birds and framed photographs, the rooms looked smaller. Evelyn walked through each one. "You all right?" I asked. "No. Do you want a minute?" "I've had 14 years." She entered the bedroom and stood where the dresser had been. "I hated the carpet when I moved in," she said. "It was brown then. It was ugly then. Now it's ugly and familiar. We can wait before going. The movers are waiting at the other end. That's not what I meant." She looked around once more. "People say things are only things when they aren't the ones leaving them," she said. "Then they want you to feel brave for choosing which ones fit in a smaller room. You don't have to feel brave." "Good." "I feel nauseated." I offered my arm. She took it without pretending she didn't need it. At the new apartment, every box seemed to be in the wrong room. The movers had assembled the bed and placed the couch beneath the living room window. Ron reattached the legs to the coffee table. Melissa filled the refrigerator with sandwiches and bottled water. At exactly 2, Carol arrived carrying the small fern she had bought on her unreachable morning. "For me?" Evelyn asked. "If you want it, I'll probably kill it." That's what I said. "Then it comes from weak stock." Carol set it on the windowsill. Evelyn showed her the apartment as if Carol had not already toured it. She pointed out where the books would go, which kitchen cabinet held the plates, and how the afternoon light reached the bedroom. Carol asked no questions about emergency cords, water pressure, or storage. In the bedroom, Evelyn handed her the old photograph of Carol and Diane. "Will you hang this?" "Where?" "You decide." Carol held the frame against one wall, then another. "I thought you didn't want me deciding things." "I asked you to decide this." Carol looked at her mother. "All right." She hung it beside the closet, slightly lower than I would have. I did not correct it. We ate sandwiches on unpacked boxes. Evelyn looked exhausted, but every few minutes her gaze traveled around the room with cautious ownership. Diane arrived after 3. She had gone home to make space for the chair and returned without the cookbooks. She examined the fern, the couch placement, and the photograph. "That's crooked," she said. Carol and I answered together. "It's fine." Diane looked from one of us to the other. "I was talking about the frame." "So were we," Carol said. Later, while Ron and I broke down boxes near the front door, voices rose in the bedroom. I recognized Diane first. "You've been treating me like an enemy for weeks." "I've been saying no to you," Carol replied. "You're the one translating. You never used to mind helping." "I minded. I just thought minding made me selfish." "Who told you that?" "You did. Every time I hesitated. That is not fair." "No. What wasn't fair was asking Frank to become the new me so I could escape without inconveniencing you." There was a pause. Then Diane said, "At least you admit this is about him. It's about all of us. He embarrassed you in your own living room. He embarrassed all of us. He was cruel. No, he was angry. You're defending him now? I'm telling the truth now." Ron looked at me over the collapsed box in his hands. "You going in there?" he asked. "No?" "Good. Why?" "Because if you walk in, Diane will forget what Carol said and fight with you instead." That was perceptive enough that I stared at him. "What?" he said. "I hire plumbers now." Diane came out of the bedroom with her purse over her shoulder. She stopped when she saw us. "This family has become exhausting," she said. Evelyn called from the bedroom. "We were always exhausting. You're simply participating now." Diane left without saying goodbye. Carol remained beside the newly hung photograph. I stood in the doorway but did not enter until she looked at me. "You heard?" she asked. "Some." "Did I handle it?" "Yes." "Don't sound surprised. I'm not." "You are a little." "A little." She touched the bottom of the frame and adjusted it a fraction. It became more crooked. "I chose something," she said. For your list? She nodded. What? A drawing class at the Botanical Garden, 6 Thursdays. You draw? No. Do you want to? I don't know. That's why it's a class, I smiled. Don't make it a big moment, she said. I wasn't. You have moment eyebrows. I've been hearing a lot about my eyebrows. Evelyn called for help finding her kettle, and Carol went without rushing. That evening, we brought the oak chair home from the workshop. The dark blue cushion was finally finished, though the zipper still showed more than it should have. We carried the chair into the garage and set it beneath the window. You said you wanted it inside, Carol said. I do. Then why are we leaving it here? Because I don't know where it belongs yet. She ran her fingers over the back. Neither do I, she said. Her phone buzzed, then mine. Then both buzzed again. Diane had sent a message to the family group. We need to discuss how we're treating one another. Ron answered first. Not tonight. Melissa added, Can the discussion involve pie? Evelyn wrote, I just moved. Leave me out of it. Carol read the messages, then looked at me. She's going to keep calling everyone separately. Yes. And we're all going to keep reacting separately. Probably, Carol began typing. Sunday, our house, 2 o'clock. We'll talk once, together. She sent it before I could ask what she intended. You're inviting your family back here, I said. Our family. To discuss what? How things work now. I looked toward the oak chair. Carol followed my eyes. This time, she said, we count the seats first. Where do you want to sit? Carol asked me Sunday morning. The question should not have mattered as much as it did. She had moved the coffee table 6 inches toward the window and arranged 3 dining chairs opposite the couch. My recliner remained where it always was. 6 places for 6 adults. The oak chair was still in the garage. Beside you, I said. She looked at the couch, then at me. Which side? Does it matter? I'm trying to ask. Right side. She placed one dining chair at the end of the couch instead of assuming I would take the recliner. Then she sat on the cushion beside it, testing the distance between us. Too close? She asked. No. Too far? Carol? I don't know how to do this without thinking about every chair. Neither do I. She stood again. Do we need rules? Probably. That sounds ridiculous. The last meeting had a floor plan for your mother's bed. Rules are less ridiculous than graph paper. She found a notepad and wrote 3 sentences. Ask instead of assign. Speak for yourself. No fixing other people's feelings. She tore off the page and put it on the coffee table. That last one feels aimed at me, I said. It's aimed at everyone, so mostly you and me, probably. Melissa arrived first with an apple pie. I was joking in the group message, Carol said. I wasn't. Ron came next, carrying a metal folding chair. He opened it in the middle of the living room with a snap. Brought my own, he said. Nobody laughed right away. Ron looked at me. Too soon? A little. He folded it again and leaned it against the wall. I counted 6 places, Carol told him. I didn't know if I was included in the couch math. You are. Then I'll sit in Frank's recliner. No, Carol and I said together. Ron raised his hands. Progress. Evelyn arrived with Diane. They had apparently argued in the car because both entered wearing the rigid politeness of women who had exhausted the useful part of a disagreement but refused to stop having it. Evelyn saw the notepad. Rules, she said. Wonderful. Will there be penalties? Sit down, Mom. That sounds like an assignment. It's a chair. Evelyn chose the couch. Diane sat beside her. Melissa and Ron took the dining chairs opposite them. I sat at Carol's right. My recliner remained empty. For a moment, no one spoke. The apple pie rested unopened on the dining table, and sunlight flashed against the metal edge of Ron's folded chair near the wall. Diane broke first. I asked to discuss how we're treating one another. Carol nodded. Go ahead. I don't want to make a speech. You made us come here, Ron said. Carol made us come here. You sent the first message, because this family has become hostile. Melissa crossed one leg over the other. To whom? To everyone. That's broad. Diane looked at the paper on the coffee table. Speak for yourself, she read. Fine. I feel like I've lost my sister. My mother is making major decisions without me, and every time I express concern, somebody accuses me of being controlling. Evelyn opened her mouth. Let her finish, Carol said. Evelyn closed it. Diane glanced toward me. I also think Frank humiliated all of us at the last meeting. I nodded. All right, that's it. What do you want me to say? I don't know. Something? Are you asking for an apology? Yes. For bringing the chair? For turning a family conversation into a performance where you were the victim and we were villains? Nobody shifted. Even Ron stayed still. I looked at the empty recliner, then at the dining chair beneath me. I was angry before I knew what you planned, I said. There was no seat, and I decided that meant everything I feared it meant. There was no seat, Diane said. What else would it mean? Carol counted wrong. Diane looked at her sister. Carol shook her head. That isn't the whole truth. She picked up the rules and held the page in both hands. I realized there was no place for Frank before he came in, she said. I could have brought another chair. I didn't. Why not? Melissa asked. Because the room looked like the plan? Diane frowned. What does that mean? It means we had arranged his future and left him outside it. Carol looked at me. I'm sorry. She did not add if you felt hurt, or that wasn't my intention. Carol had always been better at apologies than the rest of us, mostly because she had been required to issue so many on our behalf. I'm sorry I told everyone different versions of what Frank wanted, she continued. He hadn't agreed to help at the cafe, fix the steps, work on Ron's bathroom, or drive Mom twice a week. I made it sound as if he had. You said probably, Ron remarked. I used probably when I meant I wanted. She looked at Evelyn. And I should not have planned the basement after you told me you weren't sure. You measured my dresser? Evelyn said. I did. With your good tape measure? I'm sorry. Evelyn nodded. She did not rush to absolve her. Diane folded her arms. So, we were invited here for Carol to take all the blame? No, I said. I turned toward her. You're right that I made a performance out of the chair. I wanted all of you to see what had been done to me before any of you could explain it away. Thank you. I'm not sorry I said no. Her expression tightened. But I am sorry I enjoyed making you feel ashamed. The admission sat poorly in my stomach. That was how I knew it belonged there. Diane looked at her hands. You succeeded, she said. I know. And then you withdrew from everything. I withdrew from things nobody asked me to choose. You left Carol holding them. Yes. Carol turned toward me, surprised. I told Ron no, knowing he would call her, I said. I acted like whatever happened next wasn't my responsibility because I had established a boundary. Ron leaned forward. In my defense, the water was moving fast. This is not your defense, Melissa told him. I understand that now. I continued. I still think Ron needed to call a plumber, but I used my no to make a point. Carol paid for the point. You didn't make me go, Carol said. No. But I knew the pattern. I stepped out of it and watched you get pulled tighter. She looked at me for several seconds. Thank you, she said. Ron cleared his throat. I paid the plumber, he announced. We know, Diane said. No, I mean, I paid him, and didn't ask anybody to come over while he worked. Melissa leaned toward him. Would you like a certificate? I'm participating. You're doing great. He glared at her, but she smiled and he let it go. Evelyn reached for the rules. Ask instead of assign, she read. I have a question. Who wants to take me to the eye doctor next Thursday? Diane said yes immediately. Evelyn held up one finger. I asked who wants to, not who can answer fastest. I want to. Why? Because you're my mother. That describes 3 people. Diane's face flushed. Because I want to see your new glasses before you tell me you chose them without my opinion. Evelyn considered that. Honest, she said. All right. She turned to Ron. I need someone to hang 2 shelves. I can do it Saturday. Do you want Frank to check them? Ron looked at me. No. Excellent. We may all die. I can hang shelves. You removed a load-bearing wall. It was one time. 2 shelves, Evelyn said. Saturday morning. Ask where I want them before you drill. Ron nodded. Melissa lifted her hand. I can bring lunch. No, Evelyn said. Melissa blinked. Okay, I have food. Got it. You can visit without bringing anything. Melissa looked unexpectedly moved. I can do that. The room grew quieter. Diane glanced around at the others. Are we really going to negotiate every favor like a contract? No, Carol said. We're going to stop calling it a favor after we've already decided someone will do it. Families help each other. Yes. Then why does everything feel so formal? Because we were pretending one person's availability was natural. Diane's voice sharpened. I didn't create that. Neither did I. I maintained it. So, what do you want from me? Carol leaned back against the couch. I want you to call me sometimes, when you don't need anything. I do. You called me from Italy, that was last year. You needed me to water your plants. Diane looked down. I don't know what we talk about, she said. The sentence was so unguarded that nobody used it against her. Carol's face softened. We could start there. Diane looked at the framed photograph from Evelyn's old apartment. Carol had placed it on the mantel after bringing it home. The red scarf was bright even from across the room. I was the one who made you laugh, Diane said. In the picture, you had tied that ridiculous scarf around your head. I said you looked like a waitress on a pirate ship. Carol stared at the photograph. That does sound like you. You told me I looked like a horse wearing sunglasses. You did. I had those sunglasses for years. They were terrible. Diane smiled before remembering she was angry. Carol reached across Evelyn and touched her sister's wrist. It was not forgiveness. It was contact. Ron looked uncomfortable enough to need a task. He stood. Can we have pie? Sit down, Melissa said. That violates Rule 1. She handed him the pie server. While Ron cut uneven slices, Diane turned to me. I accept the apology, she said. The part you gave. That's the part I meant. I still think you've made family sound like a burden. Sometimes it is. Then why stay? The question was directed at the room, but I heard it as something else. Why stay married? Why stay useful? Why stay when nobody could compel you? Because a burden is something you carry, I said. That doesn't mean you throw it down. It means you notice who else has a hand on it. Evelyn tasted the pie. Needs cinnamon, she said. Melissa looked offended. That is cinnamon, then it needs better cinnamon. The meeting ended without a schedule. Diane asked Carol if she could call the next evening. Ron confirmed Saturday with Evelyn. Melissa left the remaining pie but took her plate home because she said Carol already had enough dishes. At the door, Evelyn paused beside Ron's folded metal chair. Take that, she said. We have enough furniture problems. After everyone left, Carol and I sat where we had been, with the empty recliner across from us. You apologize better than I expected, she said. That's a strange compliment. It's the one I have. You did too. I've had more practice. She collected the plates but did not stand. Diane asked why stay. I heard. You answered about family. Yes, not marriage. I looked at her. Do you want a different answer? I want a true one. The phrase had become both invitation and warning. I stay because I love you. That's true, but it's easy. It doesn't feel easy. Do you need me? Yes. Her expression changed, and I understood that I had given the comforting answer instead of the honest one. I tried again. I don't want to need you the way I did, I said. She waited. I needed you to explain me, to remember what I forgot, to turn my absences into proof I was a good man working hard. I needed you to make a marriage around whatever time I brought home. Carol's eyes filled. I don't want that anymore. What do you want? To know you when you aren't taking care of anyone. And let you know me when I'm not fixing something. You fix things. I know. So, what does that leave? Choice. She looked toward the hallway leading to the garage. Your chair is still out there, she said. Yes. Are you waiting for me to bring it in? The question struck close enough that I could not answer immediately. Maybe, I said. Carol nodded. At least that's true. She stood and carried the plates to the kitchen, leaving me beside an empty seat I no longer knew how to claim. I carried the remaining plates into the kitchen. Carol was rinsing pie crumbs into the disposal. I opened the dishwasher and began loading, without asking where anything went. After 38 years, I knew. That had never been the problem. Do you think it worked? I asked. The meeting? Yes. No. I looked at her. She handed me a plate. Diane will still call when she wants something. Ron will still start projects before reading the instructions. Mom will wait until the last possible moment to mention a doctor's appointment. Melissa will bring food after being specifically told not to. So, nothing changed. I didn't say that. She rinsed another plate. They might ask first. I might say no. You might say yes without making it your entire identity. That sounds optimistic. I'm trying something new. We finished the dishes. When I closed the dishwasher, Carol remained beside the sink, drying her hands long after they were dry. I don't want you in the guest room tonight, she said. I kept one hand on the dishwasher handle. Are you asking me to come back? I'm asking if you want to. Yes. Tonight? Yes. That was direct. I've been practicing. She folded the towel over the oven handle. This doesn't mean everything is settled, I know. And I'm not going to wake up tomorrow grateful that you're beside me and cancel my drawing class. I wouldn't ask you to. You might make a face. I have independent eyebrows. She laughed. That night, I lay on my side of our bed without crossing the center. Carol read 3 pages of her mystery, turned off the lamp, then shifted beneath the covers. Her foot touched mine. Neither of us apologized. The old calendar disappeared from beneath the mail a few days later. I found it in the kitchen trash, torn once through my name. Carol had not shredded it, burned it, or invited witnesses. She had thrown it beneath coffee grounds and an empty toothpaste box. I left it there. Evelyn settled into her apartment at her own speed. Ron hung the shelves on Saturday. One was slightly higher on the left, but Evelyn placed ceramic birds on it and told me not to correct him. He needs to look at it every time he visits, she said. That is how people learn. Diane sat at the old dining table twice before it was donated. On the second visit, she took a photograph of the scratches where her father's watch had struck the wood. Then she let the truck carry it away. She called Carol the next evening. Carol answered from the couch and spoke to her sister for 40 minutes. They discussed the table, the photograph, and whether Evelyn's new neighbors were too friendly. Diane did not request a single task. When the call ended, Carol looked almost suspicious. She just wanted to talk, she said. Did you enjoy it? Parts. I knew better than to ask which ones. Melissa visited Evelyn without food. She lasted 20 minutes before becoming uncomfortable and making tea from Evelyn's supplies. Evelyn later called that acceptable progress. Ron's bathroom acquired working plumbing, a repaired vanity, and tile that rose slightly near the tub. He hired someone to correct the tile, though not before spending a weekend trying to convince himself it added character. He asked me to help reinstall the mirror. I said yes. We chose Saturday morning. I held one side while he marked the wall. When he tried to hand me the drill, I handed it back. The mirror ended up level. You could have done this in 10 minutes, he said. It took us 20. So, retirement has made you inefficient. Looks that way. Afterward, we drank coffee in his kitchen, beneath the ceiling, that had been patched and repainted. Ron never apologized for the family meeting. I stopped waiting for him to. He had brought his own chair to the second one and understood enough to fold it away. At the workshop, Mondays became as busy as Saturdays. Luis added my name to the website without asking, then removed it when I pointed out the irony. He asked the next day. I said yes. Marcia became a volunteer instructor after repairing 4 lamps, 2 fans, and a toaster she didn't own. She was better than I was at letting people struggle, which she attributed to 30 years of watching graduate students ignore written procedures. I still reached for things too soon. Now people told me. Carol's drawing class began on a Thursday evening. She came home with charcoal on the side of her hand and a page covered in dark lines. What is it? I asked. A bench. I see it. You don't. I see parts of it. It looks like a collapsed bridge. I was going to say modern bench. She pinned it to the refrigerator. By the 4th week, her benches looked like benches. She started carrying a small sketchbook in her purse. Sometimes she showed me what she drew. Sometimes she closed it when I approached. Both felt deliberate rather than secret. We planned the river trip at the kitchen table. Planned together was slower than either of us planning alone. I wanted to drive farther each day. Carol wanted stops with gardens and actual bathrooms. She refused to spend 4 weeks pretending roadside jerky counted as lunch. We agreed on 10 days together, ending in Minneapolis. She booked a flight home from there. I would continue north, then cross into Wisconsin, and return at my own pace. The night before we left, Carol placed her suitcase by the door. Do you think we're running away? She asked. We're taking the mail in first. That isn't an answer. No. Why not? Because we know when we're coming back. She nodded. The oak chair remained in the garage. Our first disagreement occurred outside Alton when I ignored the navigation because I remembered a better road from 20 years earlier. The better road ended at a chain across a flooded access lane. Carol looked at the chain, then at me. Do you want to say it? I asked. I'm choosing to preserve the morning. We backed up half a mile. At Hannibal, she sketched a riverboat and made its smokestacks too short. In Galena, we ate breakfast beside a window overlooking Main Street. Carol touched the ink circle in the atlas. You made it actual, she said. We did. The trip was not a second honeymoon. We got tired. I snored in a motel with thin walls. Carol bought a ceramic planter in Iowa that rolled around the back of the truck until I wrapped it in 2 towels. Once she asked why I was quiet, and I said nothing was wrong. She waited until I admitted I was already dreading Minneapolis. You were the one who wanted time alone, she said. I know. Has that changed? No. Then what? I want it and don't want it. She nodded. That sounds true. At the Minneapolis airport, I carried her suitcase to the security line. You have your boarding pass? Yes. Phone charger? Yes. Did you, Frank? Right. She kissed me. Call because you want to, she said. Not because it's 9 o'clock. What if I want to at 9? Then I'll answer if I want to. She walked toward security without looking back until she reached the turn. Then she did. The first night alone, I ate dinner at a counter beside 3 strangers and returned to a motel room with 1 chair. I sat on the bed instead. Freedom felt different without anyone nearby to see me exercise it. There was pleasure in choosing each turn, each meal, each hour. There was also no one to blame when the day disappointed me. I called Carol at 8:43. She was on the back porch. How does the house feel? I asked. Quiet? Good quiet? Mostly. You miss me? Yes, good. That was honest, but not attractive. I miss you too. You called me. I know. The next morning, Ron texted a photograph of Evelyn's crooked shelf. 1 bracket had pulled loose. Can you talk me through this? I told him I was 2 states away. He replied, Right. Forgot. 10 minutes later, another message arrived. Never mind, I see it. The shelf was still on the wall when I returned. I got home on a Thursday afternoon. Carol was at drawing class, though I had mentioned my arrival time twice. For 1 immature minute, I stood in the kitchen feeling neglected. Then I saw her sketchbook beside the fruit bowl and remembered that she had chosen Thursdays before I chose my return. I unpacked the truck. She came home at 6 carrying charcoal pencils and a paper bag of takeout. You made it, she said. You weren't here. I know. I survived. I'm proud of you. She kissed me in the kitchen, charcoal dust transferring from her fingers to the back of my shirt. The oak chair was still in the garage the next morning. I went to the workshop. Carol had her unreachable morning. We did not make a ceremony of leaving each other. When I came home, the chair was gone. For 1 frightening second, I thought she had donated it in a final act of furniture-based justice. Then I saw it in the living room. Carol had carried it in by herself and placed it beside the couch, angled toward the place where she usually sat. Not at the center, not facing a semicircle. The dark blue cushion was square beneath the window light. You moved it? I said. She was kneeling beside the coffee table with a sketch pad. I did. Why? I wanted it inside. You could have waited for me. I know. I sat in the chair. It no longer felt like evidence. Carol settled onto the couch. There was enough space between us for her to stand without asking me to move my knees. Comfortable? She asked. The cushion helps. My zipper helps. Our zipper. Don't ruin this. I leaned toward her. She turned the sketch pad around. She had drawn the oak chair. The back was slightly crooked and 1 arm looked too long, but I recognized it. You made it look heavy, I said. It is heavy. Too heavy? She looked at the chair, then at me. No, she said. Not when the person carrying it chooses to. She set the sketchbook aside. I reached across the space between us, palm open. Carol looked at my hand before placing hers in it. Neither of us needed help getting up. We stayed anyway.